Well. Here we are again on a Tuesday, the 30th of July 2024, for another riveting conversation and information that matters to you right here on the AM show. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and I do this with Benjamin Akakbo. This morning, we'll start with the AM news, served by Denisia Poma-Ejei, bringing you the latest chronicles of information happening and things happening in the country. And then we'll get into our news review segment. For today, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe and Kojo Poku. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is a financial analyst and Kojo Poku is an energy expert. Both gentlemen will be joining us to review the news stories captured in the newspapers. And then Haruna Mumbarak will bring you AM Sports, the latest updates in the world of sports. And then we'll get into our big stories. We'll start with that investigative piece called Porous Borders, which aired at 8:30 p.m. yesterday. We'll bring you excerpt, and it tells our investigative journalist, Kwete Nate, discovers how officials at our borders are taking bribes as little as 20 Ghana cedis to allow smuggled goods into the country. First, we'll bring you the excerpt, and then we have a conversation on what we can do to seal those leakages in our revenue mobilization. And then we'll bring you a conversation on genetically modified organisms. I'm talking about GMOs, as Ghana has released its first batch of crops with GMO, that is cowpeas. We'll also bring you that conversation and many more right here on the AM show. You don't want to miss it. So join us with your comments and your thoughts, either via social media or across all social media platforms on JoyNews on TV. My name is Sweetie Abochi, but first, Denisia Poma-Ejei serves you AM News.
Hello, good morning. My name is Denisia Poma-Ejei and welcome to AM News. Now, the ambulance trial is taking a dramatic turn. The Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Thomas Opon-Pepra, took to the stand yesterday and was cross-examined by the lawyers of the various parties on the disparities in some of the claims in the Ghana Armed Forces communication concerning Richard Jakpe's release from the force. Now, the top military officer revealed he does not know the person in the armed forces who released confidential information about the third accused, Richard Jakpe, to the Ministry for Defense, which influenced the ministry's report to the Attorney General. Godfred. Court correspondent Latif Idris was there and has more.
This is what the Chief of Defense Staff told the court, that misconduct, the word that was used or suggested to Richard Jakpe during cross-examination by prosecution, that he was released or sacked from the military because of misconduct. Today, the Chief of Defense Staff has told open court that the word misconduct does not appear in the military release letter to Richard Jakpe.
Now, let's look at the table attached to Exhibit BF3. Where a military officer does not pay his debts, which of the reasons for release is applicable to him?
My lady, is misconduct and is having failed to settle his private debts.
Please tell the court whether misconduct appears in Exhibit BF3, which is the Army's release letter to third accused.
My lady, no.
Now that you do not know, or you cannot tell the court, who released the confidential records of the third accused person to the minister, were you able to find out from your, were you able to institute an inquiry into it?
My lady, I did not receive any correspondence, but some documents have been released in the court, so I couldn't do that.
Very well.
The Chief of Defense Staff also, when asked by Abdul Basit Bamba, who is lawyer for Dr. Casey Lato-Forson, whether or not he's ever cited any court order for the release of Jakpe's sack letter to the AG, his answer was an emphatic no.
Exhibit BF1 is addressed to the Honorable Minister for Justice and Attorney General.
Yes, I did.
Have you seen any court order served on you or made available to you that indicates that as a BF1 should be released to the office of the Honorable Attorney General?
No, my lady.
When you compare Exhibit BF1 to Exhibit BF3, I suggest to you that the reasons stated by the Honorable Minister of Defense in Exhibit BF1 as the grounds for the release of A3 are not totally accurate.
Yes, my lady.
The CDS went ahead to state that the defense minister can go ahead and release confidential information about an officer to, say, the court.
Does the Minister for Defense consult you, the Chief of Defense Staff, in releasing a document to another public officer, including the Attorney General?
My lady, he exercises the right to copy me or not.
And that is what normally prevails. The Minister for Defense does not necessarily consult you in releasing any document at all.
My lady, I won't say it's normal, but he can do that.
He can.
And now, away from the ambulance trial in court, the Electoral Commission is set to conduct an online mop-up for the limited voter registration exercise, aiming to register at least 70,000 individuals. Now, this comes after significant network challenges in May that made it hard to register, leaving many people to endure long queues, while others were frustrated and unable to register. The EC says they have the assurance of their internet service providers to deliver stable and reliable connectivity for this critical exercise. There's more in the following report. Oh, we'll bring you that story on the EC's mop-up exercise online later. But if you use the Accra-Tema motorway often, I'm sorry, your respite after the gaping potholes patches are over. The potholes are back, larger and unsafe than before. Michael Ashali and the team counted over 100 potholes on the express highway. Now, drivers are growing increasingly anxious and are urgently appealing to the government to address the worsening condition of the road. There's more in this report.
Poor bitumen patchwork. Plain and simple. We counted at least 100 potholes on the Accra-Tema stretch of the motorway. Iron rods and the concrete slabs are now visible barely 6 months after the motorway benefited from the $150 million released for patching potholes across the country. The rains came and simply washed away the bitumen, and the potholes have returned, now larger and more treacherous than before.
We have traveled less than half of the Tema-bound section of the Accra-Tema motorway. Already we have counted more than 22 potholes, one of which just behind me, staring us in the face.
I can imagine a driver telling himself, Eric, slow down, your ties, oh, as he approaches this dangerous spot. Drivers have no option but to slump into the iron rod-ridden potholes, ready to puncture the tires of unsuspecting motorists. Eric Upon is a victim.
Last week, I blasted for there. I was speeding light one, so I didn't see early. So I passed up where the iron rods took the tire. At the back tire, so it blast the tire. So I come out the passengers. When it is morning and the evening, we find difficult for the motor to stop. Actually, can't go early, slowly, especially abattoir bridge. Okay, yeah. There's they can't do recently, but I still know there's a heavy potholes over there.
Drivers are permitted a speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour, but to safely navigate the potholes, drivers are forced to slow down, causing traffic congestion on the express highway.
This year, the motorway in Korabo 4 at the corner, we say traffic not chill honor. I be do over here. So,
it's a difficult situation even for state institutions like the police service that has to respond to emergencies. They have to deal with this situation and drive as slowly as they can. To make matters worse, all the street lights that used to line up the entire stretch of the Tema motorway have all been removed. The exact reason we don't know. That means drivers will not have to drive in pitch darkness every night, aggravating and raising the level of danger on the Accra-Tema motorway.
Ride-hailing and taxi drivers like Stephen Ayano now avoid working at night because of the poor condition of the motorway.
It's not easy. There was a time I saw a pothole around and I was like, what is this? On the motorway, driving on the motorway and seeing this pothole, nah, it's not good.
He tells me he nearly lost his life on the motorway.
There was a pickup driving by. I think the driver was sleeping also. He saw a pothole on the road and he tried to do it. Luckily, only God. If God did not come inside, like that time, I could have lost my life that time. Sometimes someone stops me, me crash on my motorway, and I'll say, nah, because the way right now the road is, I won't go.
Drivers, passengers and pedestrians are urging government to repair the deplorable road.
So we are begging government to come throughout. Always government they pass through. I don't know say maybe they see it or not. So we are begging them to come and see.
We have to go on the contractors because the way maybe they come on the road and they do the road, they just do like part-time thing. They don't do it to last. It's just a part-time thing. When it rains, nah, that's it.
After traveling the entire stretch of the motorway from Accra to Tema and back, we counted a staggering 112 potholes. A disaster waiting to happen. Drivers hope the government will fix it before it gets worse. For Joy News, Michael Ashali.
Now let's go back to that story about the EC's plan to conduct an online mop-up for the limited voter registration exercise. Now the commission is aiming to register about 70,000 individuals. There's more captured in this report.
In the last limited voter registration exercise, the Electoral Commission registered more than 100,000 eligible voters. The exercise spanned 21 days. However, not all eligible voters were able to make it onto the electoral roll. The EC says in August it will give all such persons the opportunity to register in the mop-up exercise.
Currently, there are 18,681,366 provisional registered voters, and we emphasize that these figures are provisional. As part of measures to ensure an all-inclusive voters register ahead of the 2024 general elections, the Electoral Commission is organizing a mop-up voter registration exercise to give opportunity to eligible persons who could not register and those who have turned 18 years since the limited voter registration exercise. This mop-up registration exercise will be conducted online. So if you are already a registered voter, our system will flag you out. The mop-up voter registration exercise will take place from Thursday, 1st August to Saturday, 3rd August 2024. The exercise will take place at all the 268 district offices of the Commission 26 public universities, and 41 prison centers across the country.
The May limited voter registration exercise was originally planned to be done online only. However, due to connectivity challenges, the EC instructed their agents to register them manually. For the mop-up exercise, the EC says they have made all necessary arrangements with their service providers to ensure a smooth online experience.
Actually had a series of meetings with MTN, and we have been given the assurance that the internet connectivity will be stable. So that's the main reason why we are not going offline. We will have a stable network, but in case we do have challenges with the network, the offline is the available option.
The Electoral Commission says they are in talks with the Ghana Police Service, which has also agreed to provide round-the-clock protection at all registration centers to ensure no violence is marked.
Political parties are allowed to send their agents to the registration centers to observe the exercise. The Commission expects the parties to educate their agents well to enable them conduct themselves professionally at all the registration centers. We've also informed the security agencies, and they will be there to make sure that they safeguard not only properties but the persons or maybe officials at the registration centers. So apart from the education that we do, we also have the presence of the police.
All things being equal, the Electoral Commission hopes to register at least 70,000 new eligible voters onto the electoral roll. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
Another University of Health and Allied Sciences has conferred an honorary doctorate of science on President Akufo-Addo at the CD Auditorium at the university's main campus in Sokode in the whole municipality of the Volta region. Now, the honorary doctorate was conferred on him for his contribution to the development of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education in the country. This adds to the catalogue of honorary doctorates the president has received from prestigious tertiary institutions across the globe during his 8 years of administration. More captured in this report.
The University of Health and Allied Sciences, which took off in September 2012 with about 150 students, now has a student population of about 8,000, offering 22 undergraduate and 14 postgraduate programs. Addressing a special congregation in honor of President Akufo-Addo, the Vice Chancellor of UHAS, Professor Lydia Aziato, announced the addition of some new programs.
And we are going to start a 6-year Doctor of Laboratory Sciences program, an MPhil PhD in Medical Laboratory Sciences, an MPhil Midwifery program, Doctor of Psychology program with specializations in clinical psychology, counseling psychology, and neuropsychology. We are also going to introduce for this academic year, with the next admission, Bachelor of Health Service Administration, which is a 4-year degree program. In addition to that, the School of Pharmacy is going to also introduce MPhil PhD program.
Welcome back. Sincerest apologies for that. We'll bring you that story in our subsequent bulletins. But guess what? It's now time for business updates with Sweetie Abochi. Hello, Sweetie.
Hi, Poma. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's a beautiful wet morning, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right. Now let's do some business stories, starting with Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, has asked commercial banks to strategize and find more innovative ways to reduce the high non-performing loans sitting in their books to prevent the looming credit risk to the sector's recovery process. His comment is coming at a time banking industry non-performing loans ratio surged to 24.1% in June 2024, up from 18.7% in June 2023. Speaking to Joy Business, Dr. Amwa stated that the Bank of Ghana and the banks have a greater role to play in reducing the high NPLs. There's more in this report.
The banks themselves will have to look through their loan portfolios. They have to do their loan type and loan industry analysis to identify which areas of the economies are posing challenge when it comes to servicing of the loans. They also have to look at the individuals who may be struggling to service the loan and identify what possibly will be the challenge in their inability to service the loan. The banks will also have to look at their whole credit regime, how they go through the credit assessment, and identify what best ways they can use to reduce this high level of non-performing loans. Because at the end of the day, the funds that the banks are using to create these loans are depositors' funds. So it is a responsibility of the banks to make sure that when these loans are extended, they are repaid so that depositors can have access to their funds. Again, Bank of Ghana also has a responsibility to make sure that the entire industry is good enough to support lending activities. We shouldn't forget that Ministry of Finance will also have a role to play, because if the entire financial services sector, the entire economy is not really working, definitely servicing of loans will also be difficult. So it is more about the relevant industry players playing their role to help all of us contract credit and have it at reduced cost.
And now let's check for the latest in the currency market. And that's it for business updates. Denisia Pomeje takes over again.
Wow, that's it for AM News. Don't forget, right after the news, we have news review. Today, we'll be joined by energy expert Kojo Poku and Dr. Wisdom Dugbe. He's a financial analyst. Sweetie, can you help us with what's coming up on the show today?
Yes, for our big stories this morning, we'll have a conversation on that hotline documentary investigations, which have uncovered how customs officials take bribes to allow traders to transport smuggled goods from neighboring countries. These officials take bribes as little as 20 Ghana cedis to allow traders who have evaded paying taxes on their goods cross the borders. We'll bring you excerpts from that documentary, and then we have a conversation on how what we can do to seal those leakages in our revenue mobilization. And we also have another conversation on GMOs, that is genetically modified organisms. And Ghana has released its first GMO crop for commercial production in cowpea. What does this really mean for the agricultural sector in the midst of concerns raised by peasant farmers who say the country does not need this, since the consequences for such interventions don't look good? We have all this on our table, so you don't want to miss any of our conversations.
Oh, thank you, sweetie. And that's it for AM News once again. Enjoy the rest of the show.
We're back. It's the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakwa. Welcome back. Right before we get into the news review, which you know is what we serve you around this time, let me just let you know that this segment is always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. As always, they're offering you that opportunity if you're a man. Pass through for prostate screening for free, gratis. If you're a woman, pass through for fertility screening. It's all free. You would rather know your status than not know. And that's why they're offering you that for free. You can reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra. Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate, Tema, Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama Nzima. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Time now for me to introduce my guests for the morning. In the blue corner, we have Kojo Poku. He's an energy expert. Kojo and Serwah Poku. He holds the keys to energy. And then we also have Wisdom Dogbe, Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe, a financial analyst. He holds the keys to our finances, to the money on the show this morning. So one holding the energy, one holding the money. Mr. Dogbe or Dr. Dogbe, give the money to Kojo Poku, and Kojo Poku will give us light. You know, so gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How are you both? Kojo, I really like your traditional fugu. It's pretty nice.
Well, it tells you, it is to give you an indication of where I have been for the past 1 week. So I've been adapted. I'm in my homeland. I'm in my homeland of the Upper East. So I'm very comfortable here.
Oh, awesome. That's great to know. Which specific place in the Upper East region are you?
We're in Bogam.
Okay. All right. Okay, gentlemen. So like we usually do, we want to make tracks very quickly so that we can dilate on a number of issues. Kojo, I'll start with you. Your issue for the morning. 1 minute, gentlemen. 1 minute each. Kojo.
No problem. I'll just have to use the 1 minute to thank the good people of the North and the good people of Upper East for the good hospitality they've given us. We've been here for about 2 weeks and it's been wonderful. And I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you to everybody who stood in the rain, stood in the sun, stood in all sorts of weather to welcome us, to hear the good message of Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. And it's been wonderful, and I can't appreciate them much enough.
All right. Thank you very much. Wisdom?
But I was a bit troubled when I read that the Ghana Police Service, they have filed an injunction to prevent a planned protest by our Gen Z citizens. I think that that demonstration has been planned to start from August 31st, July 31st to August 6th, to bring attention to the severe economic hardship, which is disproportionately affecting the youth in the country. I struggle to understand why such an injunction has been brought. I believe that the police, they do have guidelines that govern some of these protests, and I'm hoping that the courts would side with the youth, so they can have a voice. We need to empower them.
I see. Well, interesting thoughts there. Let's quickly get into the papers. And if time allows, I would want us to get into some major issues on myjoyonline.com. The GRA Finance Ministry being sued over tax waivers, and Kweku Kwarteng and some of what he's been saying. But the Ghanaian Times is where I want to start. Second phase UHAS project, biggest nursing midwifery school opens as president receives honorary doctorate degree. We've not paid $10 million to SGAG, that's according to the Bank of Ghana, on the alleged payment for spare parts for ambulances. Question though, first batch poultry products under FSRP ready for market consumption, and then give us power to bite, EPA says. Then we need 1 year extension to complete Ofankor-Nsawam Road project. Charlie. Anyway, on that one, Maripoma Enterprise Limited, the construction company working on the Ofankor-Nsawam dual carriageway road project, has requested 1 year's extension to complete the work. Thus, the project will now be expected to be completed in July next year. If you live on that stretch, that's not heartwarming. The $346.5 million road rehabilitation project is jointly funded by the government and Maripoma Enterprise Limited, a wholly owned Ghanaian construction company, which is also executing the project under a design build contract with the Associated Consultants Limited as the supervising consultants. Well, that's the story there. If you live on that stretch, Baba now. Give us power to buy. The executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. John Kingsley Krugu, says transforming the agency into an authority will strengthen its regulatory functions and prosecutorial powers to bite better. He said the MPA needed to take a strong leadership drive in environmental protection, adding that its regulations would be hinged on the new bill, which is at the consideration stage in Parliament. I'm going very quickly, gentlemen, so if there are issues you want to touch on, I'll be going very quickly with them. You can note them down. When I come to you, then you reflect on them. Now, let's go to page 12, the president and that latest bit. So President Nana Akufo-Addo yesterday inaugurated the biggest school of nursing and midwifery in West Africa on the campuses of the University of Health and Allied Sciences at Sokode Lokwe in the whole municipality of the Volta region. The school, which constituted the second phase of the establishment of UHAS, was constructed with a $60 million loan facility from the Chinese government. Something someday I want to go into. We all know our indebtedness to the Chinese, but what that means in terms of our GDP ratio, GDP debt ratios and others. I'm asking that because we know about the Chinese footprint on the continent of Africa and how some of them have become unsustainable. I don't think we should be very careful about those bits. But it has a central administration block, lecture theatres, recovery rooms, intensive care unit, a delivery ward and a holding bay, among others, and has the capacity to enroll more than 5,000 students. Of course, we also know the president received an honorary doctorate degree from the University of Health and Allied Sciences. The last story I'll do and then come to you, gentlemen. So 4 stories for your reflection. We've not paid $10 million to SGAG, that's according to the Bank of Ghana, which has denied claims. It has paid an amount of $10 million to the Service Ghana Auto Group for spare parts and maintenance contract it entered with the Ghana Ambulance Service. A source within the bank disclosed to the Ghanaian Times that no payment had been made so far, since no demand had been placed for such payments to be effected. The claim is in response to allegations by Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuel Kujatua Blakwa, that the government had made some payments to SGAG for the spare parts it supplied to the Ghana Ambulance Service. Question though, why did Ken Oforiatta sign that 34-point-something million contract in the dying embers, the final week of his tenure when he knew he was leaving? And with all the linkages in there, and the fact that in fact, you can use the sums in there with just a little top-up to buy a brand new ambulance. Anyway, gentlemen, your thoughts. I'll start with you, Wisdom.
Look, man, when it comes to this ambulance servicing contract, whether it is a $35 million or $10 million, right, it is very concerning. When would these things end? When would the national purse be managed properly so that we can get value for money? We have companies that are formed yesterday with no proven track record. And by tomorrow, they are awarded multi-million-dollar contracts. Are these things even legal by the public procurement law? Would these government officials...
The Auditor General had refuted this company, just as happened with SML and all of that. There had been pushback from the Auditor Generals, yet a short while later, you see them getting contracts.
Right, and this is not just an isolated case. It's happened over and over again, right? Would these government officials run their private businesses the way they run the business of the nation? Awarding contracts with no reasonable due diligence that is done on the company that they are giving these contracts to. This company is awarded a contract and they use the staff of the National Ambulance Service to do the job. What is wrong with us as a nation, Ben? It's an unfortunate trend that split Ghana in the last few years. Look at the case of SML, just like you said, and the 5G contract that was awarded recently. In fact, I can name a host of them, right? Look, I'm struggling to comprehend how the decision was made to spend such an amount of money on spare parts for one ambulance when you could have simply bought a new one. And these vehicles I heard were bought in just 2019. Why do you need so much money for maintenance on a 5-year-old vehicle? And is this administration not currently prosecuting Honorable Dr. Atuforsen and others for allegedly causing financial loss to the state?
That's the irony of it.
Right. So how is this one any different from that case? And why is this not in court as well? If you don't think spending $113,000 on spare parts for one vehicle is causing financial loss to the state, I think a special place awaits you on Judgment Day. It's a travesty and a sad day for our nation to be discussing this.
All right. Anything else you'd like to share, or can I move on to Kojo Poku?
Kojo, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Well, you don't need to hear my thoughts. You know, when you hear something, listen to the details before you start talking about things being in court or not being in court. Nothing has been paid to anybody. No contract has, there's no 5G contract given to anybody. Some of these details, let's please educate the populace for them to understand what's going on. There's been no 5G contract given to anybody. There is only an agreement signed with a consortium to provide infrastructure in the country for 5G. So no contract has been given to anybody. Secondly, this issue, let me land, please. You can make your notes. This issue of the country, okay, where you say that we manage things anyhow. Look, there are proper due process. No money in this ambulance issue. Unfortunately, since this thing came up, we've been in the north, so I don't have enough information on it. But one thing I know is that no money has been paid to anybody, as Ben rightfully said. And there's going to be a proper investigation to understand why that amount of money.
But you're a businessman. You're a businessman. Let me ask you, for a company that has been flagged by the Auditor General on multiple occasions, just as SML was flagged, and yet goes along to receive a contract. As a private businessman, you have what? Is it gas up oil and all of that? Would you have done that? And I ask you another question. The sum of money involved, would you rather buy a new tanker or spend a margin of about $10,000 difference to get spare parts? No, hold on. To get spare parts for an old vehicle, which likely would have problems. Which one would you do as a private businessman?
Ben, and it's a good thing you asked me, because I'm from a family of transport owners. We've owned transport all our lives, okay? And let me tell you something. You need parts. We all don't know the details of the parts to be procured, but everybody is jumping up and down saying that it's a lot. Do we know the details of the 10 million?
If you buy $100,000 Mercedes-Benz, if you buy a $100,000 Mercedes-Benz, will you be buying spare parts at $85,000?
Ben, you asked a question, let me answer. What I'm trying to explain to you is that I don't have all the details. You don't have all the details. All everybody is doing is dividing the number of ambulance. We don't even know what the details are. Can you tell me what the spare parts are to be bought? I have not seen a single document out there that is telling us the details of the spare parts to be bought. Meanwhile, everybody is basically crucifying this transaction.
My problem with such an analysis is just what I just said. You can use logical reasoning. It's not everything, else we wouldn't discuss anything here. Yeah, would want to see, hold for me. Would want to see every little dot, every T crossed, every I dotted before we'd be able to discuss anything. On the surface of it, and I want to tell you that if you were on the other side and this had happened, you wouldn't be speaking the way you are.
No, I would not. Because I know you. As you asked me, I'm a businessman, Ben. You asked me as a businessman. I'm a businessman. Every businessman has stock of parts. If you're a transport owner, you have stock of parts. What I am saying is that we all do not have the list of spare parts that were to be bought. And look, I'm not holding brief. Oh, Ben, let me land. I'm not holding brief for that transaction, but you asked me a direct question. What I am saying is that let's dive into this thing. One, no money has been paid. Okay, let's get the list of the spare parts to be bought before we basically do what? Have this discussion. But let me move on to my substantive documentation, my substantive what you can call it, that I want to talk on the UHAS.
So make it brief before, because I see that Kofi also wants to just add on to that, so I can go to another paper. Kojo, back to you.
Okay, but my main submission is on the UHAS, which is the health facilities around the country.
You spent all your time on the ambulance.
This government has done a lot in health. And it's unfortunate that we have my brother Semijan Figos on Metro to say that nobody can mention one district hospital. I put out a statement that mentioned minimum of 5, and he has not responded. Because, look, everybody should do their research. This Nanado government, this Dr. Baomi Nanado government is doing immense transition in education and health, and we should all applaud them for it.
All right, thank you very much.
Kofi, quick point. You started off by saying that no single dollar has been paid yet. These are all agreements. Are you aware of this contract that was given to provide internet services to SHS, right, senior high schools. The money was paid and internet service is now being provided. That's just one example, right? You can cherry pick, right? You can choose and pick what issues you want to talk about or what examples you want to talk about. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, this is a trend that we need to talk about, that this whole thing about sole sourcing, what individual companies, they are formed yesterday, tomorrow they get contracts, and they are paid huge sums of money. And we have our teachers that are begging for just a little bit of a raise in their salaries, and they are still on strike. Does these things make sense to anybody else?
I don't want this to turn into a new discussion and argument.
Ben, please ask me a question, I should answer.
Okay, go ahead. 20 seconds, let's go.
Well, the issue of the busy internet thing that he talks about, the only monies that has been given to busy internet is internet provided. Nobody has given them a lump sum for internet not provided. Currently, busy internet went through a transition to a new company, and that company is having challenges. But if you go and check the records, nobody has since paid them any money. It is used and paid. The internet provided is what the government has paid for.
But what I know, Kojopoku, they have received money for internet not provided. Are you aware of that? Or are you telling me you're oblivious to that?
At the time when they have been paid, they did provide the internet at the time. Now the internet is not working. So if you go and check the invoices presented, they presented invoices for internet used.
Okay. I think for everything we're discussing this morning, you have a different set of documentation or
Ben, because as always, you call me the expert and I give you the information. That's the most important thing.
Well, you're an energy analyst or expert in energy, but not in everything.
Ben, you know me.
No one of us is an expert in everything. Nobody is an expert in everything.
You and I know that.
Let's do the economy times. Trade surplus improves slightly for first half 2024. Interest rates to remain stable. There's also government records 2% deficit for first half 2024. So Ghana's trade surplus for the first half of 2024 has improved slightly, driven by higher exports relative to imports. The trade surplus improved to $1.81 billion in the first half of the year, compared to the surplus of $1.6 billion recorded in the corresponding period of 2023. I'm wondering, though, because I reviewed this same story, Economy Times, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know, but interest rates to remain stable as well. Government records 2% deficit for first half 2024. Let me quickly get into the Daily Guide newspaper now. You can lump your thoughts together. Court dismisses case against Ameu, $2.37 million ambulance case. And that's the other ambulance case, Richard Jakpa and then Atto Forsen. CDS nails Jakpa on his dismissal. Interesting how the Daily Guide always couches its headlines, because yesterday I followed that discussion. EC starts voter registration mop-up August 1, and Parliament passes Ghana Shippers Authority bill. So let me just take a quick look at some of these stories. A high court in Ho has dismissed a petition challenging the constitutionality of the election of John Peter Ameu as the Member of Parliament for Hohoi in the Volta region in the 2020 election. The court, presided over by Justice Owahene Echampong, yesterday indicated that it did not have jurisdiction to determine the relief sought by the plaintiffs as they sought to question CI-12H with the Electoral Commission used in the conduct of the election. Well, hopefully this year there will not be any such problems. NHIA outdoors free annual health checkup program. And the National Health Insurance Authority yesterday launched a major health promotion activity aimed at fostering preventive health care among Ghanaians. The activity, Annual Health Checkup, is captured under the National Health Insurance Scheme benefit package and would thus offer free health screening for blood pressure, blood sugar, and body mass index checks, as well as counseling and referrals where needed for all Ghanaians 18 and above. I think this is something that we've heard in recent times from Dr. Da Costa Abuaje, a few things in there, some of them being actualized. Then I'll just do the EC exercise and wrap. That story also on page 6. So the Electoral Commission has announced that it will begin a mop-up voter registration exercise starting from August the 1st to the 3rd, 2024, in all the 261 district offices of the Commission across the country. Speaking at a press briefing yesterday in Accra, the Deputy Chair of the EC in charge of operations, Samuel Tete, said apart from the district offices of the Commission, The exercise, which starts from 7 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m. each day, will also take place in 26 public universities and 41 prison centers. Any thoughts, reflections, Kofi?
Ben, this mock-up voter registration exercise is important, right, to ensure further voter inclusion and also accuracy of the voter roll across the country. And I hope that the EC will draw on the lessons learned, you know, in recently passed registration exercises, you know, to make the mop-up much more seamless. And my hope is that the political parties will also do their parts to ensure a successful and successful remedial registration, because the last time, if you remember, we had reports such as some political parties, you know, they were trying to illegally register minors to vote. Reports of violence at places like Edujama and for North Southeast constituency, and also in Kukuom in the Ahafo region and a few other places. You see, it's not everything that is the fault of the EC, even though they have a lot of opportunities to improve. Right. The citizens also have a huge role to play, Ben, in ensuring that we have a smoother voter registration. Things like this. I mean, trying to register minors illegally.
Right.
A check of the disturbances we've heard about, all of the troubles, right, and all the troubles that were fomented, some of these were by people who have little to no regard for the rule of law. And I hope that those people can be put in check during this voter registration exercise.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts. There's also, I can't skip this one. CDS nails.
I can speak. Hey, Ben,
my apologies. My apologies. Go ahead.
Hey, is that where we've got into now? You have forgotten that I'm on the program.
Propaganda here with you.
No, Ben, just yet.
You know, the way we do on air, then we meet outside. Could you go ahead? Please go ahead. You would have skinned me alive. My apologies.
Anyway, I want to talk about the good things that are happening in the country. Look, trade surplus is improved. The interest rate is coming down, stable and coming down. All these things point to an economy that has made a U-turn and basically going in the right trajectory. Right. As you are aware, if we go on the same trajectory we are on now, for once in a very long time, we will get a budget surplus of about 0.5% of GDP, which is a good thing. We are up in the north with the finance minister, and he tells me some of the good things that is happening on most of the projects that stalled, which are about to start. We have to congratulate our brother, Dr. Da Costa, who is doing amazing things and bringing some good innovation to the NHIS system. And some of the things that they are rolling out is very good, and it's for the average person who needs some of these things. So I think I'll congratulate him for the good work that he's doing. And also, I think, Ben, you agree, his media relationship is very good. He's basically giving out a lot of information and appearing a lot more on the media circuit than other heads of NHIS that we've had. So I think you guys should help him also achieve more with the announcements of the things that he intends to do.
He's doing very well with that. Another person who was doing pretty well, Dr. Okoboy. He was also doing. Okay. A politician I actually like very much, though sometimes.
Oh, you don't like Kojo?
I said, Kojo, we are friends. How can I be your friend if I don't like you? Anyway, so that's that. Let's look at the story on page 3, and then we'll make tracks from here. So, the ambulance case. The Chief of Defense Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Thomas Opon-Pepra, yesterday added further credence to the prosecution's case. Interesting how the story is couched. That Richard Jakpa was dishonorably discharged from the army. While under cross-examination by the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Govt, the military capo confirmed that Jakpa had been released honorably from the army. He would have been, if that had happened, he would have been permitted to use his title in private life, and he would have had his name on the list of retired soldiers. So he did confirm that he was not honorably discharged. But there were a number of other questions that came up, including the fact that the Chief of Defense Staff was not aware that this documentation or information on Richard Jakpa had been sought, but it was the Minister of Defense who had provided this information. I mean, when I followed part of the processes, I was scratching my head and asking questions along the way, but hey, it is what it is, isn't it? If you have any quick reflections, gentlemen, Kojo and Kofi, we can take a quick swipe at that. If not, we move on.
Yeah, quickly. I think the third accused, Mr. Jakpa, he definitely deserves the opportunity, to defend himself against what he calls a plot to smear him and to denigrate his integrity. The AG and his office have produced a letter as a basis for the dismissal of the accused from the military. And that letter said he was dismissed due to persistent misconduct. And the defendant is saying that he has no knowledge of the letter in question. So I think it was in the best interest of all the parties involved to have the Armed Forces representative, the Chief of Defense Staff, to attest under oath, right, to the authenticity of that letter. And the CDS said that Jakpa was dismissed for lack of interest. And he also said that he had no idea how the AG and the Minister of Defense came up with the letter, then that they caught and admitted as evidence. Let that sink in a little bit.
Well, there was also talk about his use of a vehicle and otherwise, and letting his driver off and using the vehicle. Some things came up, but like you rightly said, lots of food for thought. Kojo?
Well, it is food for thought, but look, you said that he needs opportunity to defend himself. The man is in a court of competent jurisdiction, so there's no better opportunity for defending yourself than the court, and he's being given the fairest trial that anybody can ever get. He is going to go through it. If he's guilty, he's guilty. He's not guilty, he will come home. My concern is the length of time these processes take. When you have a friend, a brother or a sister or a family member accused in court, it takes too long, whether the person is guilty or not guilty. I hope this trial is over quickly so we all know the results and everybody can just breathe a sigh of relief.
Well, Justice Ifya Serwah, I believe that's her name. It's a pretty long name, but she had mentioned at some point that she wanted the process to be done quickly before the political season. I don't think things are going according to plan. But one thing I'll say, in the law, anyone who has any knowledge of the law will know that it is not about justice merely being done. Justice must be seen to have been done. I'll leave it to the courts and all these prosecutors. You don't need to say anything, Kojo Poku. I'm merely saying that justice, I am well versed with the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm well versed with the law. And justice must be done. It must not merely be seen to be done. This is trite knowledge. But anyway, the New Finder newspaper. Lithium fiscal regime advantageous, but potential risks that could impact the expected revenue exist. NRGI says so. CD strengthens against pound sterling. And as of now, at least for what I know about the dollar, which is very worrying to me because most people use the dollar in Ghana, you're looking at north of 20%. The last I checked was 18 point something. The last one, I think, was it June or entering July, over 20%. You have 1/5 eroded. Bank of Ghana warns of elevated credit risk amid banking sector recovery. And President Akufo-Addo commissioned $60 million Phase 2 expansion project of UHAS, boosting agriculture. Insights from Ghana's mid-year budget review for farmers, agripreneurs, and agricultural associations. Well, I want to wrap quickly with this and then look at some of the online stories, then we can go. I'll just look at the lithium bit, and then we can take it from there for the sake of time. So, an assessment of the fiscal regime of Ghana's lithium agreement by the Natural Resource Governance Institute indicates that while the country's take for the first lithium agreement is higher than the existing legislated fiscal regime and the regimes of many others, such as Australia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Zimbabwe, there are several potential risks that could impact the expected revenue. The report, which was authored by Dennis Jair, Africa Senior Program Officer, and Thomas Skerfield, Africa's Senior Economic Analyst of NRGI, said the government had negotiated a fiscal regime for the Ewoya mine that ensured a higher share of revenue for the country. We also know that lithium exploration is on a bit of a time leash. You have to maximize it now because many other places are coming up with it before it loses its value. But I'll throw these stories at you as well. The Ghana Revenue Authority and the Finance Ministry are facing a lawsuit over plans to grant tax waivers to 42 companies under the One District, One Factory initiative. The suit was initiated by 3 minority members of parliament led by their deputy leader, Emmanuel Ama Kofi Boa. Then, other stories for your reflection. Kweku Kwarteng, solving Ghana's problems goes beyond voting out NPP. He said in that release on dated the 25th day of July that our economy for decades has been run like a Ponzi scheme. And that the way things are headed, I'm sure you understand if you've read the document. And his final bit, my article wasn't an attack on Akufo-Addo's government. That is Kweku Kwarteng. Gentlemen, I'll start with you, Kwejo. A minute and a half each, and then we can go. Your thoughts on these matters?
Mr. Kweku Kwarteng, Honorable Kweku Kwarteng, was a deputy finance minister. He had opportunity to serve his country. If he had ideas that he thinks things should be turned around, I think he should have preferred them and acted on them whilst he was at the finance ministry. Again, people are making it look like the statement he made was in specific relation to the MPP, but he may say that the governance structure, the finance structure that we have from independence to date is run like a Ponzi scheme. He never said the MPP government, and everybody is on air trying to make it look like he now attacking MPP.
Don't do this. He said that for decades, and he references this administration in that letter, and you're telling me that he's trying to refer to other administrations, not this one?
Man,
what kind of logic is that?
No, but what are decades? He said that for decades. What a decade is 10 years minimum. So what are decades?
I never said that it was restricted to this administration. He says for decades, our economy has been run by a Ponzi scheme, including this one. How can you extricate this administration from it?
I am not talking about you. I'm saying that online, every reporting in this, when this thing came out, made it look like he made mention. That is why Honorable Kweku Kwarteng have said that he is not attacking the Akufo-Addo government, because the reportage has made it seem that he's talking the Akufo-Addo government is run like a Ponzi scheme. That is why I'm correcting it. Because what he said that for decades. So it is not the attack on this government. It is not, he is not saying that this government, the MPP administration or the Nana Addo Dankwa administration is run the finance like a Ponzi scheme. So it's good that we put out there. Me and you are saying the same thing.
You're saying that he's referring to the past, not this current administration is not part of it.
From the past to now. That is why I started my submission from saying that he was appointed in the deputy finance
ministry. So by that same logic, it means from the past up to this point, including this administration, has been run like a Ponzi scheme, our economy.
That's according to him. Okay. But that is why I started off by saying that he had opportunity to serve. So whilst at the finance ministry, he should have preferred solution on how to change them. That's why I started off by saying that.
In like manner, it's good that you've said that, because you say that since he was there, he had the opportunity. He should have used that opportunity. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is vice president. We have tried to extricate him from everything in there, including taxes, the e-levy, and his rhetoric. Would you apply that same yardstick to him because he's there, he's vice president? He could have effected change. How about that?
Okay, so there is this. Let me explain it in one sentence. There is trying and coming out to say that I tried and I wasn't successful, then not to try and come out and make a condemnation. Doctor has not come out to tell anybody that there is a problem at the presidency. Kweku Kwarteng is coming out to say that there's a problem at the Ministry of Finance. And the question I'm saying, at the point I'm putting out there is that he was once there and he should have made a change. Have we heard Dr. Bawumia complain about anything at the presidency?
Okay.
No.
All right.
So I think that...
So
thank you very much. Kojo, we don't have all the time. I gave you a minute and a half. You've done 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
My last point on the city. The city is improving. Everything is going. The lithium is very important.
20 seconds.
That's fine. With the big policy that we have on solar, about 2,000 megawatts of solar to be rolled out, we need a lot of lithium batteries. And if the value chain is done right, Ghana can utilize all the lithium that comes out from that industry.
Thank you. Kofi, you have the final word.
I think that the problem with us as Ghanaians or for our countries, we are always looking for who to blame, right? Who to blame. As far as
he did not interject when you were talking. Let him speak, please.
Because a Ponzi scheme is when you take new funds from new from new investors and use that to service existing investors or creditors. That's exactly what we've been doing as Ghanaians. We take loans and then we go back and take loans to service. Look, I read something recently, just yesterday. We have 478 Eurobond repayment that is due to be paid, right? And that payment has to be made this year. Where is that money going to come from? The Bank of Ghana governor, he said that we have enough reserves to use to pay that amount of money. Think about it yourself. Where do you think that reserve money is coming from? Where do you think we got it from? It is from one source, which is not from the proceeds or the positive returns that we got from the initial loan to service the original loan, which is a Ponzi scheme. That's something that we need to work on as a nation, to take loans and deploy them to revenue-producing ventures so that the nation can benefit from these things.
Thank you, gentlemen. Kojo Poku is an energy analyst. We also have...
I don't get to respond.
No. We are done. You already had your say. There's no back and forth on this.
I even wish I talked about the lithium because I disagree with
Here's what I'll do. I can share his number with you, Kojo Poku. Then you guys can do the job over there.
No, you bend my ears. It's okay.
Kojo Poku is an energy analyst. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is a financial analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. As they go, I want to highlight an issue I'm very passionate about. What happened to Lois Koranting, a KNUST graduate who was found dead under mysterious circumstances at a hotel in Takoradi? That story is on myjoyonline.com. And the family has released new evidence to challenge the police and the hotel. We must look out for one another. What happened to this lady? Unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. We must get to the bottom of it. Well, this segment always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you, as you know, prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomo Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takoradi Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techim and Hanswa, and Esiama Nzema. You can reach them via phone on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. We serve you sports up next on the AM Show.
And for sports on the AM Show with me, Haruna Mubarak, we start at the ongoing Olympic Games, where in the next few hours, Ghana will open its campaign in swimming as Harry Stacey is set to compete in the men's 100 meters freestyle event. Stacey is making his debut in the competition via the wild card entry after being ranked as the best swimmer in Ghana by the World Aquatics. Joy Sports editor Fentio Tahiru Fentio has been assessing the chances of the Ghanaian swimmer.
Historically, wildcard entries usually, especially at the first time of asking, don't. The reason they're there on wildcard entry basis is basically because, thank you, that's it. So you don't expect them to do anything magical. I would be shocked to the bone if Harry Stacey were to get to the semifinals of his heats. I think we've had wildcard entries before. 2016, it was Kaya Forcing and Abeku Jackson. Both of them did not make it to the next round. Tokyo 2020, we had Abeku Jackson again, and I think another one who was also there on wildcard entry basis. At that time, Abeku Jackson was far more competitive. He won his heats in the wildcard the early heats, but his time wasn't fast enough for him to progress even to the next round. That could be the situation with Harry Stacey as well, who is competing in the 100-meter freestyle. That's a very difficult competition. That's a very difficult race. A very difficult swim. It's 100 meters, it's 2 times the pool. And you need a lot of stamina and a lot of speed for that. We saw him at the African Games when Egypt and South Africa didn't bring their best swimmers, and yet he wasn't one of those people that could medal. And that was a place where it was feasible for him. He couldn't. So I think, for me, realistically, he should be looking at swimming maybe a new personal best, a new national record. But I think anything beyond that would be a massive surprise and a big bonus, to be fair.
Back home, and FC Samatex are 17 days away from making their debut in the CAF Champions League. The reigning Ghana Premier League champions have wrapped up preparations for the clash against Victoria United. My colleague Razak Musbao visited the team in Ekropong and reports.
28 years after its establishment, FC Summertex 1996 finally clinched its first ever Ghana Premier League title after an outstanding performance in the second season in the top flight. Following this success, the Samurai Boy-based club also earned the privilege of representing Ghana in next season's CAF Champions League, taking over from the Diama Sporting Club, who reached the group stage in the previous Interclub Continental Championship. In the draw held at CAF headquarters in Cairo, Egypt on Thursday, 11 July 2024, the Timber Giants were paired with Cameroon champions Victoria United in the first preliminary round of the tournament to be played from August 16 to 25 of this year. Ahead of the game, the team has been camped in a Krobong where they have been training intensively. Veteran tactician coach Nuruddin Amadou has been entrusted to lead the team in this maiden campaign with hopes of replicating the success of last season's Ghana Premier League. He joins the ranks of coach Ivan Sadote and Karim Zito as local coaches who have recently had the privilege of leading Ghanaian sides in CAF interclub competitions.
I mean, it's a privilege. And I take inspiration from many of them like Zito, like Adetwe, Bendiama as a club. And so what they have been able to do, we're all proud of them. And so since it's our debut, we are also trying to go far. We'll try to do our best. It's not going to be easy. But we and the playing body, management, everybody, the investor, we are all motivated. We want to carry the team to a different level. That's exactly what we are planning towards.
For you personally, you mentioned that you want to try and get the team to go far. If you want to, clarify far, what will be the specific target you have for your team in Africa?
I cannot give you a specific target, but our main objective now is to the group stages to qualify and get into the money zone.
Speaking on the opponent, Coach Amadou says he is expecting a challenging game but confident his team will be ready before the first leg in Cameroon.
Yeah, they are a good side. Unfortunately for both of us, we are all, this is our first debut. We are all debutants, so we are going to rub shoulders with each other. And then watching their games, they are a good side. They try to possess and play from the back. And so, gone are those days when we used to know Cameroon players, they were very physical, but now they are playing good football. And so, I mean, we have started to at least adopt some strategies going forward. We still have about, let's say, 3 weeks. And so, I think that we should be able to manage them. Yeah.
Meanwhile, in a bid to strengthen the squad following the departure of key players, including midfielder Emmanuel Kieke, the club has since signed a number of new players, including former Heart of Oak centre-back Kofi Agbesime and Realton United duo Lord Hilary Adabo and winger Baba Kushebu.
We have lost some very key players. You can talk about Evans also through injury. Now that you see, the other side is safe to APL and then Kieke, who were very key and they were very, very instrumental in our qualification. And so we have made some new signings, but one thing is signing the players and one thing is whether they will be able to adapt easily to team play. And that is what we are praying, that they should be able to adapt to new environment, new situation, new tactical dispensation and what have you.
Forward Baba Hamadou Musa, who finished last season with 10 goals, is also poised to give his best and ensure the team scores as many goals as possible in its maiden African campaign.
I would say sure, because that's one of the biggest achievements in it, because if not the group stage, we will play only 2 games. For even maybe if you lost in the first round of the competition, you go out of the competition. So our wish is to do our best and be in a group stage and also do the maximum best and go above that group stage. Yeah.
For CAP Captain of the side, Emmanuel Edusiao, wants the Ghanaian public to rally behind the team as he leads them in their quest to make Ghana proud, game after game.
What I can say to all Ghanaians is Samatex is it's not only for Samurai Boy. Now we are representing the whole of Ghana, so I'll urge everyone, we plead to everyone, if you are a Kotoko fan, Akufo fan, this is Ghana first, so we have to come together and then support the team from Ghana, and together we can make history again.
Now the first preliminary round is slated for August 16 to 18. The Samatex will travel to Cameroon, where they'll face their counterpart Victoria United. Now the team will be hoping for a positive result ahead of the second leg, which is slated for August 22nd to 25th and expected to be played either at the Accra Sports Stadium or the Barbara Sports Stadium. The mood in camp is one of great optimism. Lots of these players will be playing in the competition for the very first time. They are looking to take inspiration from Midiama, who made it to the group stage of this very competition, and possibly get to the semi-finals and, who knows, replicate the very history they made in the Ghana Premier League when they clinched the title in their second attempt. FC Samatex is ready to go all the way in this competition, prove all the doubters wrong, and be able to create history for themselves. All they're asking of the Ghanaian public is to turn up for the second leg and cheer them on in this competition as they look to fly the flag of Ghana very high. For Joy Sports, Razak Musbao at Ekropon in the Eastern region.
So Samatex are getting ready on the pitch. They're also getting ready off the pitch as well, because they met Parliament yesterday seeking financial support ahead of their clash. Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babin, has assured the club of financial assistance.
We want to support you to succeed. You are representing Ghana now, and so Ghana should be behind you. We are one of the three arms of government, and so on behalf of the Parliament of Ghana again, I pledge our support to you. Having last year donating 100,000, and in view of increase in interest rate and the depreciation of the cedi, if I give another 100, it means I've given you lower. So we'll do the exchange rate and other calculation and see how much that works up to. Even if it's up to 200,000, we'll give you. My friends in the media, don't quote that I pledged 200,000. I say even if it's up to 200,000, we'll definitely give you. And we'll not only give you that, we'll try to support you with the other logistics. It's a very, very expensive venture. Football is very expensive. Where they play, no gate fee, nothing. So everything you have to buy.
And Italy defender Riccardo Calafiori from Bologna for a fee up to £42 million. The 22-year-old who started Italy's 3 group games at the Euro 2020 has signed a 5-year deal with the Gunners. He has joined up with his mates in Philadelphia.
You know, I spoke like 2 months almost with the coach and with Edu. They tried to convince me, but I was already really convinced to come here. And for me, it's the best project that I can have to improve as a player. That's it.
Were there other clubs in for you as well, and why was Arsenal just so much ahead of the others?
Yeah, as I said, there were other clubs, but now I don't care anymore. I'm here, and I want to improve to win trophies. And as I said, it's the best project for me because the team is young, the team is strong, and I like this.
This has been going on for a few weeks. It must be an absolute relief just to get this over the line and be here with the squad.
Yeah. Finally, I'm here. I know I have to start day by day improving with the trainings, but as soon as I'm really fit, I'm gonna help the team, I hope.
How excited are you to play at the Emirates Stadium for the first time?
Super excited. I cannot wait anymore.
Riccardo, what makes you so confident that this is the right club for you?
I don't know. I have this good feeling, you know. I cannot explain, but for sure you were going to see on the pitch that was the right choice.
Can you tell us what Mikel's told you about your role in the team? You can obviously play in different positions.
Didn't speak a lot about the role. I just want to play and improve. We'll see also about the team, which necessity we have. You know, I can play different position. I don't care really where to play. I just want to play.
Did you watch Arsenal when you were a kid, when you were younger?
The pictures was fake. I tell you, picture is fake. But to be honest, I came here in January and I watched Arsenal against Crystal Palace. And, now I'm here. So
I don't know if you're on social media, but the fans already have a song for you.
Yeah, I heard a chant. Yes, I heard.
What do you think about that?
It's pretty good, but before I want to play. Then I want to hear the chant before I want to play.
Arsenal are obviously very close to winning the Premier League last season. How do you think that you can improve them to maybe get them over the line?
I don't know. Maybe my mentality. I like to win. Also by starting by the training, and I want to give this to the team, and also I'm confident with the ball. I like to play as a team, so it's the perfect choice.
That's it for sports. My name is Haruna Mubarak, and thanks for watching.
We have driven through several checkpoints with these goods without tax stamp from Aplau through to Dabala to Segakope without being flagged. Our movement through these checkpoints was smooth until the customs officials in her mid-30s flagged us to stop at the Segakope checkpoint. The investigative team assumed this customs official who stopped us was to inspect these goods would get us to pay taxes on the assorted drinks. But we were in for a shocker. She demanded the team pay a bribe of 400 cedis. She allowed us to pay 200 cedis after some minutes of negotiations. I have succeeded in meeting one of the smuggling kingpins in Elubo, who identified himself as Error. For every box of rice he brings from Ivory Coast to Ghana, he charges 20 cedis. It is this amount he pays off to customs officials he works with to facilitate his business. If he can transport 500 bags of rice to Elubo, he will earn 10,000 cedis.
Me charge there saying, and you ever say be about 300, number 320. In the meantime, the dear measure bear 500 bags. It's me drew and much cha. A customs one and see a bear more day. I know the 20 cedis in man, me met it. There were 20 cedis. I didn't no problem.
The investigative team decided to test these claims made by the traders and commercial drivers. We bought several boxes of rice from neighboring La Côte d'Ivoire. At the Elubo border post, this customs official, who was identified as Kujo, allowed our boxes of rice bought from La Côte d'Ivoire into Ghana. We did not pay the statutory taxes. When the team got to the customs checkpoint at Samir, our vehicle was inspected by two customs officials. They asked me to follow them to their office. They demanded I paid a bribe of 20 cedis and left me to go with the boxes of rice.
So I'm going to celebrate small Yes, man.
What do you have?
Rice.
How much?
3.
And you are going to use it to the
I'll dash down to my pasta. And then other people.
Typically, we want.
We are in the festive.
The driver should know better.
I think
he informs you the nitty-gritty. I'll dash you one and pay for the 2.
The 2, how much would I pay? 20. Thank you very much.
Here's a book for me to read.
Hey, thank you very much.
My number is 11.
I thought you were coming to give me receipt.
Oh. But the receipt when you pay the duty.
Ah,
the duty is 1 by 170.
Oh.
Welcome back, and of course we get into our big stories now. It has to do with that latest Hotline documentary, our investigative piece, Porous Borders, and you saw in your shot what exactly is happening. Yesterday, when the question was posed to the boss in Parliament, when that committee was sitting, he did make mention of the fact that they would try to get more visuals, watch the entirety of this documentary and find out whether these were actually their officers or officials, which made for very interesting listening. But joining the conversation this morning as we delve into this, we have Abdallah Ali Nachia, managing partner of Ali Nachia and Associates. He's a tax expert and he speaks to the issues. Later, we'll have joining the conversation Adam Senan, who is with the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. But Mr. Ali Nachia, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's a real pleasure having my former lecturer join the conversation this morning. Thank you so much, sir. So let's get into this issue. It's not the first time it's happening, but I know you have some peculiar insight into this matter. Please share that with us before we get into what this means for our tax system as a country.
Thank you very much. As authors have always said, taxation appears a complex area, and talking about border patrols and smuggling as part of the issues we face called illicit financial flows. This is a little of concern. Maybe some people will be looking at the quantum and think these are little amounts. Maybe we've not seen the huge ones. And as the saying goes, little drops of taxes make a mighty nation anyway. But in trying to look at issues bordering on taxes and losses and smuggling, we need to look at the history. We should not forget in Ghana we used to have what we call the Border Guard Unit, who are attached to the military. Indeed, a lot of them were military officers and had their own command structure, just as we had for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. And if you remember, we had the General Utuka heading the place, so we had Brigadier General Gumel at a point in time. And we also had the former Army Commander, Major General Adisa Opoku, who used to be one of their heads. So over the years, you realize that they got disbanded and integrated into the regular military, as it were. Some were already military officers. Then the issue about patrolling the borders to prevent the movement of goods and services fell under customs. And we used to call it customs, excise, and preventive services. So that was the preventive wing. So we say that over the years, when we are doing reforms, we shouldn't forget what segments of a unit, an establishment do. Because as customs, excise, and preventive, if we relapse and get concentrating on customs and excise, we may leave the preventive to suffer, and these things may come about.
Is that what you're seeing now? Before you go on, is that what you're seeing now? Are we growing lax on the preventive aspect of things?
I would think so, because you realize that if you look at the preventive, these smuggling operations can sometimes be dangerous because they may be armed. So you have the preventive unit trained and armed to patrol the borders, be at checkpoints to prevent this illicit flow through smuggling. Today, if you look at recruitment, I think at a point in time, there was even agitation that why are we taking military men or assigning military men to customs, forgetting that they go to the preventive wing. Because if you come out, excuse me, if you are a graduate banking and finance, you join customs, they say go to the border post with your arms and prevent smuggling. I'm sure you will say, no, that's not what I thought I was coming to do. So over the years, we should have maintained that training, even if we take on people who are prepared to be in the preventive. Are we conscientizing them? Are we training them on the purpose for which they are there? Again, even when we've done that, we need to look at that issue of regular movement and changing the cycle of the people at certain posts. The saying is that familiarity breeds contempt. The person is there, he's known by everybody, he gets there, oh, how are you, well, how far? You see, that familiarity is not the issue, but is it making you concentrate on checking the person? And over the years, we had immigration also training and now having border patrols also to check movement of persons. I remember there was an incident of a clash between customs and immigration patrols. And I remember reading an article by Captain Nkrabiefa that explaining that this shouldn't happen. You all have your mandate. You are monitoring and preventing illicit flow of goods. You are checking, preventing illicit move of persons. When did persons become goods? And when did goods become persons? So you are to collaborate with each other because an illicit movement of goods, the goods are not on their own. They are being carried by persons. So if a person is arrested or intercepted by an immigration officer and he has on him uncustomed goods, these should be brought to the attention of their colleagues at customs to take charge of that angle. And they can continue with processing it. So if you go to borders, you find both teams there and they have their mandate. So the more we have these clashes, we give a leeway for the people who would want to engage in that also to continue.
Right.
And I have been asking that in this day and age, we are doing digitalization. Is it not the time we invest in some drones that can monitor for us? When the people would just monitor the images the drone is projecting to them, then they can intercept. We have been successful in using drones in zipline to drop medicine. Can't we deploy and see how it can help us to monitor movements? In fact, that is why the documentary says porous. You may not be able to patrol every nook and cranny of our borders, but at least the drones will tell us which section of the border the incident is rife. Then we can concentrate, because anytime they change their route, we will be able to get information. Again, we had issues with informants. People were bringing information on these activities. Question is, where is their informant's award? There is a reward, which is always touted by the GRA that if you give us information on loss of revenue, you're entitled to some amount. Sometimes the informants have the challenge of being exposed by people they may have also given information to, making their life risky.
Right.
Two, some have challenge on getting the amounts promised in the law or in the practice directions of the revenue. So they relax. And now, instead of telling us where we are losing the revenue and how we are losing it, they'll go to the other side and take the money so they don't even report. So we need to address facets of all these to be able to deal with the border issues. And I keep saying, irrespective of the route a person uses, no matter how porous, he will enter a town. And that is where the informants will be able to know. I've seen a truck discharging certain goods at this location, and then the officials can approach and verify. And so that is what it is. And if you remember, there was a directive, for example, addressing the issue of smuggling of fuel, where there was suspension of giving permits to people to operate filling stations in towns closer to the border, because investigation and informants made the officials aware that trucks can come in from neighboring countries with little fuel in their tanks, buy the fuel, and then drive back. You may not know that that is fuel they were smuggling. You only saw a truck that came and said, well, I didn't get any goods to load, I'm going back. And they filled their tank. How would you identify that? But over the years, they got to know and said, okay, we are not going to have stations closer. So if you come deeper in and buy, before you get to the border, the fuel is gone. Would you continue that smuggling route? You would not. So we need to identify bits and pieces and address them. It is not easy patrolling. The borders are really porous, except we know only the designated point.
Right.
And now, even in the designated point, then we need to look at addressing issues of staff morale, rewards, training, and the conscientization. That because if we talk of illicit financial flows, this is one of them.
You talk about staff training and all that. If you've noticed, there appears to be a sort of trend. Of course, there are very good customs officers. There are very good immigration officers in there. But there seems to be a trend as well where this has been sort of normalized, these corrupt activities, maybe even institutionalized. Is there a way of training that can lead to fewer incidents of these? Because this is not the first time. This is not the first documentary on this. We've done this time and again. And every time you see similar incidents. Some people are getting through, crossing the border after having paid 20 cedis. 20 cedis. And these could be terrorists. Of course, we can talk about the tax losses to our country and all of that. I mean, I don't know what your take is on that.
Exactly why you still now have the immigration aspect of the patrols. And what we need, as I indicated, is the issue of collaboration, because as you indicated, these persons moving could be terrorists. And then how do you know that? How do you know whether the person has even the documents to move? And then you are also looking at ECOWAS protocols on free movement of persons. So these are challenges that need the collaborative effort of both sides. Because if the person is coming in with uncustomed goods or moving without documentation, he came from another side. What is the protocol arrangements with the other side to ensure that we work in tandem with one another? Because, as we say, the world is a global village. And then if you look at the quantum, when we talk about corruption and all these, you will realize that the report of SHRAG and Ghana Integrity Initiative and the National Anti-Corruption Coalition indicates we are losing close to $3 billion every year through corruption. And these are some of the corrupt acts, smuggling, paying your way out. It's part of all these. And so if you look at this quantum, which is just close to or even more than what we are going for from IMF, because IMF is $3 billion for 3 years. This is $3 billion for 1 year. So net gain, net loss is $2 billion a year. We've not even talked about the illicit flows, because all the illicit financial flows for mining, for example, These small-scale miners, we ask, these galamsey operators, we hear, where does the gold go? They may also be crossing borders to trade it in neighboring countries. Otherwise, where is the statistics or data showing that their outputs are part of the exports of gold and other minerals we are working on?
Right.
So we have a bigger challenge in terms of, we may not see only the rice, there may be so many other valuable items crossing the borders without the duties and the due process.
And that's a crucial point you make, because even in the past we've known how our gold, Ghana would be saying, oh, we exported this amount of gold, yet some other countries would be saying we got these amounts, telling you that a lot of it went out of our borders through smuggling. But do hold for me, hold for us briefly, Dr. Ali Nachia. Let's also bring in Sweetie Edem Senunu, anti-graft campaigner on this.
Citizens Movement Against Corruption. And Edem, let's explore the angle of bribery and corruption. This documentary has revealed a high occurrence of bribery and corruption involving custom officials. And like Ben said, and listening to Dr. Ali Nachia reiterates that this isn't new. This isn't the first time we're experiencing this. So this, first of all, suggests that there's a systemic issue of failure within the border management and customs of enforcement, as well as challenges in enforcement and accountability. How do you argue? What's your argument? You have to unmute for us, please.
I am unmuted.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. I was saying that I think that would be an accurate assessment of where we find ourselves. Part of the challenge is not having passed the COPO, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which would have codified a lot more detail in terms of sanctions that you apply when public officers fail to align with their mandate. Whether there was a giving of money, of a favor, of a promise, which is a bribe to influence the decision of that public officer, or it was extortion, because when the public officer compels you by force to give something, that's still corruption. These are all manifestations of an abuse of entrusted power for private gain, and ideally we would have clearly spelled out laws on what sanctions should be applied. At the moment, except for the codes of conduct that exist, which are not on the law level, there's no legislation, there's not enough detail on the kind of sanctions, except that obviously it's a breach of the responsibilities assigned to the officer, and it is a good enough means for which they can be sanctioned by their institution. And because we are not enforcing enough, and a law would have made it even much more better in terms of the enforcement options. And then we would have, the repeat offenders being clear in their mind that, look, if we attempt this thing, we are going to lose our jobs. But there's not enough precedent to serve as a deterrent, and that's where we find ourselves.
But how effective then have previous anti-corruption, measures been in curbing this menace? If they, as we speak, you say there are no clear sanctions, would you say that the previous anti-corruption measures have just also failed?
Well, yes, in one sense, we have not, in terms of the enforcement part, it's not in terms of identifying what is wrong. We all know what is wrong. And it's the reason why a law that even breaks much more further what the various elements of wrongdoing are and what the punishments for these specific wrongdoings are, such that a court of competent jurisdiction could take the cases up and persons investigating would know what to file. That's a major gap we have now. As some of you may know, the COPO has been before a cabinet for quite some time, and civil society has been trying to impress on government that move this back to the legislature so that it can be passed and we have a clear law. Again, that law would be looking at the issues such as lifestyle audit that we have been concerned about. So in terms of understanding what is going wrong, there's clear information on that. But in terms of providing a basis for, sanctions, for the law to crack the whip and persons to be found culpable and punished adequately to serve as a deterrent, we do not seem to have, properly done that, and we are failing in that regard.
Right. Yesterday, I listened to Major General B.K. Owuna, the Ghana Revenue Authority, I think he's in charge of customs at the Ghana Revenue Authority, and he says that the problem is not, they're not oblivious about the problem, and they're going to conduct a full-scale investigation and then proceed to punish those culprits if it turns out that they're actually part of customs. How do you respond to that? Is that the right step we should be taking now? Launch a full-scale investigation and find out who's culpable and then proceed to punish them?
I think that would not be the ultimate response. I mean, unless you have something that is sustainable, that is continuously done, and that could only be that you have institutionalized a mechanism where, for example, where we talk about mystery shopping, undercover agents, we ought to have a system that continuously does. They should not take a JoyNews investigation to come back to this issue. So it is not a once in a blue moon incident of we do an investigation and find people culpable and then we go to sleep. That will not work. So really, we would need much more than what he's offering at the moment. We should be clear in our minds which unit within SEPS, within the police structure, within all our structures, will continuously take up this responsibility and go beyond just the issue of we found a group of people, we've sanctioned them at this point, and then after that, everything seems like it's honky-dory.
Well, he also added that they are going to be training their officers, geospatial intelligence training for custom officials. That is like educating them and equipping them to handle issues like this. So perhaps that's what we should be looking forward to, and how that could also help curb the menace. Do you agree?
That definitely provides a much more compelling basis to sustain checking on such things. Because yes, if you're using technology, for example, the drones quietly observing, collecting data, the fact that these drones can go around randomly, the fact that they would have a system in place to use the current, institutional rules in terms of what staff can do and not do, to sanction and to let go of persons who are not, as it were, promoting the best interest of the nation. I think that would be a much more sustainable thing. So if he fleshes that out some more, and we are clear the kind of partnerships they will get and how that system will be run, and that it will be a permanent unit within, their setup, that definitely will be a much more compelling way to go.
Right, thank you. Benjamin, this is what we have. And I think we should also talk about the security issue in all of this, because there are so many things that are not being checked, being smuggled into the country. These fizzy drinks, energy drinks that have not been approved by the FDA.
Which could be dangerous to people's health.
20 Ghana cities to bring this into the country. I don't know what Dr. Linachia thinks about this, but let's find out. Doc, what do you think about the security aspect of this? How some of these goods and products can cause serious implications on the health of citizens?
Yes, I think that is the concern, because if you look at the usual, what I would call usual normal route of importation, you will find, apart from customs officials, you'll find people from the Food and Drugs Authority, you find Ghana Standards Authority to certify. Now, if you look at this approach, it means that there is no certification, our health concerns are at risk and all that. But again, if you listen to the tape, you find that when they asked what is this rice about, he said, I'm going to celebrate Christmas with it. Of course, an officer may think this quantity for a household, or it's something that is not taxable or otherwise. So we also need to appreciate where the issue is coming from. If there were a vast load of rice, I'm not sure he would have treated it the way it was. But that is not to defend what was done. But a little look at the conversation. What are you using it from, just for Christmas or something? But like I said, little drops of taxes make a mighty nation. And it was not only about the quantum, but also looking at the incident and your office and what is expected of you as a job function? Are you reneging on what you need to do? So those are the concerns. And I know people may think, what is 20 cities against huge corruption and scandals on procurement and all that? It tells us how, as I was listening to co-chair Mr. Demsenano, if we don't deal with it holistically, people will look at other aspects of corruption and start making comparisons. What is this compared to that? So we have a bigger issue of dealing with corruption.
Right.
Well, Dr. Nachi, I just want to find out from you, looking at some of these incidents, you've come face to face with some of these incidents before, one involving someone smuggling some items. Would you like to share that story with us?
Yes, I was told of a story of a man that the officials will see riding a bike across the border. In the morning, he goes to the other side. And then by evening, you find him riding back home. They will search his bag. He's not carrying anything. Just a few items he bought, then he will pass by. It kept going on for a long time till a customs officer on instinct said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Go ahead." He said, "You know what? The way you keep going and coming, I'm suspecting that you are smuggling something, but I can't put a finger to it. So if you can let me know what it is you are smuggling that I'm not seeing, I promise you would go." The man looked at him and smiled and said, "I'm smuggling bicycles." Then it dawned on them, they don't look at the bike he rides in and out. Apparently, an older bike is ridden across, and then when he's riding back, a new bicycle, but he has taken off everything. So their mind went to it and said, we need to expand our focus on other aspects. So this is how, by observation, by instinct, they are also trained to be able to observe. A normal auditing, all auditors will tell you, if you go for stock taking or asset verification, you look at observation. That is why in stock taking, we go and observe how processes are done. So in the same way, they are training, it's the fact that they are giving all these kind of pointers for them to be able to, so like the people said, oh, just for Christmas. Just to let you know that it is not dutiable because it is not up to commercial quantity, or I'm not using it for commercial purposes. So the question would be, then the officers would find out. If you would come back, they will wonder, how many Christmas do you celebrate within a period of a month? Then the instinct would strike. So those are what I think we need to bear in mind as well.
All right. So 2 quick questions. As a taxman, and of course, our nation feeds on these taxes to develop. We are losing, we're bleeding. What can be done from the tax perspective? And I'm talking of officialdom, to stem the tide of these. And then on the other end, again, officialdom, I know we've already touched on corruption becoming endemic within some of these services, but how much more can we do to force them to do the right thing?
I think that it all starts with, 1, recruitment. What do we go through? What do the candidates go through? Is it the cliche job for the boys or party boys being taken on board in any government in time, not a particular government? Those people come with a sense of entitlement. And this is everywhere in recruitment. We need to check this. 2, what is the level of training? Because if the recruitment has a challenge, we have people who are not trainable. They come in with the traits and continue with the traits. They can't be reformed. Mr. Senano mentioned it. If anybody goes against the standard of procedure, what are the sanctions?
Okay.
Are they meted out? do we ensure, even if it comes to transfers, some instances are that people think being put at certain border posts is a punishment. Let's get him out of this place. It's not a dumping ground. That is even the core area of our revenue base if it comes to import. So we need a holistic view of that. And then we need to do the rotation and get out the familiarity, and anybody who gets there wants to ensure that, look, nothing wrong goes on with me. Having seen people being punished, people being sanctioned, you will do the right thing. So it is a whole basket of activities that need to be done to protect the revenue.
This is how we're going to cap off the conversation. Sweetie, do you have anything else for Doc?
I think it's we've put everything in perspective now. We need systems that actually work. We need laws, clear laws on sanctions to apply to these issues. But yeah, that's it. Well,
we're grateful to you, Doc, that you took the time to join us for this discussion. Dr. Ali Nachia joining the conversation there. He is partner of Ali Nachia and Associates, Abdallah Ali Nachia. And we also have Edem Senanu, Citizens Movement Against Corruption. We'll be back with more on the subject. Stay with us.
We have driven through several checkpoints with these goods without tax stamp from Aplau through to Dabala to Segakope without being flagged. Our movement through these checkpoints was smooth until the customs officials in her mid-30s flagged us to stop at the Sugakope checkpoint. The investigative team assumed this customs official who stopped us was to inspect these goods would get us to pay taxes on the assorted drinks. But we were in for a shocker. She demanded the team pay a bribe of 400 cedis. She allowed us to pay 200 cedis after some minutes of negotiations. I have succeeded in meeting one of the smuggling kingpins in Elubo, who identified himself as Error. For every box of rice he brings from Ivory Coast to Ghana, he charges 20 cedis. It is this amount he pays off to customs officials he works with to facilitate his business. If he can transport 500 bags of rice to Elubo, he will earn 10,000 cedis.
Me charge there saying, and yeah, man, say be about 300, no 320. In the meantime, the dear measure bear 500 bags. It's me drew and much church. A customs one and see a bear more day. I know about 20 cedis in man, me met it. I was 20 cedis. I didn't no problem.
The investigative team decided to test these claims made by the traders and commercial drivers. We bought several boxes of rice from neighboring La Côte d'Ivoire. At the Elubo border post, this customs official, who was identified as Kujo, allowed our boxes of rice bought from La Côte d'Ivoire into Ghana. We did not pay the statutory taxes. When the team got to the customs checkpoint at Samir, our vehicle was inspected by two customs officials. They asked me to follow them to their office. They demanded I paid a bribe of 20 cedis and left me to go with the boxes of rice.
So I'm going to celebrate small S-man. What do you have? Rice. How much? 3. You are going to use it. I'll dash down to my pasta. And then other people. We are in the festive. The driver informs you the nitty-gritty. I'll dash you one and pay for the two. How much would I pay? 20. Thank you very much. Here's the book for me. Hey, thank you very much. My number is I thought you were coming to give me a receipt. Oh. But the receipt when you pay the duty. Ah, you see,
We have driven through several checkpoints with these goods without tax stamp from Aplau through to Dabala to Segakope without being flagged. Our movement through these checkpoints was smooth until the customs officials in her mid-30s flagged us to stop at the Segakope checkpoint. The investigative team assumed this customs official who stopped us was to inspect these goods would get us to pay taxes on the assorted drinks. But we were in for a shocker. She demanded the team pay a bribe of 400 cedis. She allowed us to pay 200 cedis after some minutes of negotiations.
Back to Dabala, we pay the you pay something you want to How much?
I have succeeded in meeting one of the smuggling kingpins in Elubo, who identified himself as Error. For every box of rice he brings from Ivory Coast to Ghana, he charges 20 cedis. It is this amount he pays off to customs officials he works with to facilitate his business. If he can transport 500 bags of rice to Elubo, he will earn 10,000 cedis.
Me charge there saying, and Baku 26. The other one say be a Baku 300. Number 320. In the meantime, the dear measure bear 500 bags. It's me drew and much cheche. A customs one and see a very modern. I know about 20 cedis in man, maybe 20 cedis. No problem.
The investigative team decided to test these claims made by the traders and commercial drivers. We bought several boxes of rice from neighboring La Côte d'Ivoire. At the Elubo border post, this customs official, who was identified as Kujo, allowed our boxes of rice bought from La Côte d'Ivoire into Ghana. We did not pay the statutory taxes. When the team got to the customs checkpoint at Samir, our vehicle was inspected by two customs officials. They asked me to follow them to their office. They demanded I paid a bribe of 20 cedis and left me to go with the boxes of rice.
So I'm going to use it to celebrate small S-man. What do you have? Rice. How much? 3. You are going to use it to go back. I'll dash down to my pasta. And then other people. We are in the festive. The driver informs you the nitty-gritty. I'll dash you one and pay for the two. How much would I pay? 20. Thank you very much. Here's the book for me. Hey, thank you very much. My number is I thought you were coming to give me a receipt. Oh.
Well, when we talk about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, you know that if you modify genetically any plant, animal, or microbe, you're engaging in genetic engineering. It has come, it is here with us, but as Ghana pursues this route, what are the lines we have to read between? Ghana has released its first GMO crop for commercial production in cowpea. The question is, what does this mean for the agri-sector in the midst of concerns raised by the peasant farmers who say the country does not need this since the consequences for such interventions don't look good? Of course, the implications of such moves. Well, joining the conversation as we talk about GMOs, we have Charles Nyaba. He's former executive director and an agribusiness consultant. We have Dr. Jerry Mboyene. He's a senior research scientist and lead scientist on GM cowpea. He is also the CSIR Savannah Agricultural Research Institute member in Nyankpala. And finally, joining the conversation later on, we'll have Anthony Morrison. He's CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness. But I'll start with Dr. Mboyene. You are advocating the use of GMOs. And we do know that in recent times, for example, in South Africa, in Nigeria, GMO corn has been a thing. But walk us through why we have come to this point where we are accepting GMO cowpea. Why this research? What did the Nyankpala incident reveal to you?
Okay, good morning and thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. GMOs and why we need it. So for us in the CSIR, we are interested in any safe technology that will enable the country meet its food security goals. That is basically what we are supposed to do. So we employ cutting-edge science to make sure that Ghana as a country is able to meet its food security demands. And if the GM technology is one of those, then obviously we have to go in for it. Now, GM technology is a very, very expensive technology. So why will we be employing such a technology for farmers? You only use it when it is absolutely necessary. As I talk to you now, Ghana is a net importer of cowpea. So if you go on the market right now, a bowl of cowpea costs about 60 Ghana cedis. Why do we have that particular problem? That is because of the many insect pests that farmers have to battle with right from the time of planting to the time of harvest and even in storage. As I talk to you now, every farmer who crops cowpea, they spray at least 3 times in a week. So they spray at least twice in a week. So every 3 days, a farmer is spraying. You can imagine the effect on the health of the farmer. You can imagine the effect on the health of the consumer and even on the environment. So there is a need for us to mitigate the excessive use of insecticides in the cultivation of that particular crop. It is not surprising that just a couple of months ago, our journalists reported of the incidence of someone suffering from food poisoning as a result of feeding on wache that was prepared from insecticide-contaminated cowpea. These are not the kind of things that we want for our citizens. We want our citizens to have sufficient quantities of good quality food to actually feed on, to enable everyone live healthily. And GM is one of the safest technology for that. Let me state that GM crops have been in existence since 1996, almost 3 decades now. And there is no single incidence of anyone suffering from any health-related disease as a result of consuming GMOs. As a matter of fact, scientifically speaking, GM are the most safest because they go through the rigorous testing before they are eventually released. And if I use the case of the cowpea, we have worked on it for nearly a little over a decade to get to this point that it was released. So as a country, if we want to meet our food security needs and our demand to make sure that there's sufficient food for our citizenry, it is one of the safest approach to go when it is necessary. We are not saying that it is the only solution to food security in Ghana, but it definitely is one of the tools that we have to employ if we want to be food sufficient.
All right, so just to pin you on this point, you've mentioned that because we are net importers of cowpea, of course, we would expend more money. It's not readily available. It's expensive to boost our food security and for health reasons as well. But I'd like to find out from you, and you made mention of the fact that someone got, poisoned because of insecticide contents in cowpea recently or something of the sort. But GMOs also have their levels of toxicity, don't they? GM foods are inherently known to be unstable. Tell us about how these genes, modifying these genes, whether they don't have any likelihoods of contamination or toxicity. Is that what you're saying? Are they totally free of that?
So, the last points that you just made are part of the many misconceptions that people throw out there in the public domain, just to make people feel that GMOs are not safe. It is absolutely not true. So I'll take you an example of whether
no. Just clarify for me, Dr. Mboyene. I'm not saying everything has its own levels of. I'm not saying it is not safe, or some of the people who say it is not safe. I'm asking, is it foolproof that there can be no toxicity-related incidents, or it is foolproof when it comes to safety? I'm asking that specifically. That's the question.
The answer is yes. So every commercially approved and released GMO crop variety has no toxicity, it has no allergenicity, and it hasn't got any of those problems that you are talking about. And there's sufficient data, even from our studies, to prove that.
Okay, so I am reading a document now that does talk about toxicity and allergic reactions as far as GMO foods are concerned. And this article states, for example, that it creates two separate and serious health risks involving allergenicity. The first is that genetic engineering can transfer allergens from foods to which people know they are allergic to foods that they think are safe. And this risk is supposedly not hypothetical. It is real. There is another allergy risk associated with GE foods. This could be creating thousands of different and new allergic responses. You're saying all of this is unfounded. Before I move to Mr. Nyaba shortly, you are saying all of this is unfounded. Is that what you're saying, Dr. Mboyene?
It is absolutely wrong. So for any GM crop that you eventually release into the ecosystem, you test and prove that there are no known allergens associated with it. And you also test to ensure that there is no toxicity associated with it. These are the basic protocols that are followed before any GM crop is released. I would have been very, very happy if you had stated the source of that particular document. Let us be careful not to read online publications that are not peer-reviewed. That is why in science we talk about peer-reviewed documents. So people throw in a lot of sensational, just their own opinions that are not backed by science. And if we read outside documents, then we are likely to mislead the public. I'm telling you on authority that based on international protocols, which Ghana has signed on to, you cannot release any GM crop that carries an allergen or carries any form of toxicity. It is never true. That is why we conduct bioinformatic analysis to ensure that there is no toxin associated with the protein profile of whatever GM crop that you are producing. It is absolutely false.
All right, I'll give you 3 websites you can go to. There is medicalnewstoday.com. There is, and where I was just at, centerforfoodsafety.org. That is center with an ER, not an RE. I cite them not to contradict you, but I cite them for further education to be sure that we're all on the same page and on the right path. Let me bring in Charles Nyaba. He's former executive director of the Peasant Farmers Association, and he is also an agribusiness consultant. For you, Mr. Nyaba, do you have the sort of confidence that Dr. Mboyene of the CSIR has? He says these GMO cowpea products and any others they will make, if they are released, will be foolproof, fully safe, and the farmers will have a greater yield. What's your response to that?
Morning. Let me say good morning to my brother from CSIR. Yeah, so I am a bit amazed and disappointed with the dishonesty from my brother to say that GM food is completely safe and that there is no allergy. There are a lot of research. I haven't done any research on the cowpea, GMO cowpea that is yet to be released, but there is a lot of research from the originators of GMO. If you go to US, you go to Brazil, you go to Argentina, even South Africa, where GM is very popular, there is a lot of proof to show that there is no certainty that GM food are 100% safe for human consumption. Now, let me ask you one question. So if GM food is that safe and there is no allergy, why is it that when you go to US, organic food are 2 times costly than GM food? Can he provide any reason why it's so? Is he also saying that when they release the GM food, GMC, the cowpea GM, Ghanaian farmers will have control over the seed? Would they be able to produce those seeds and reproduce them, save them for use, for reuse in the following season? Okay, our point is very clear. We don't want a situation where we will subject farmers to dependence of any other person's discretion to whether give them seeds or not. As he himself is talking, has he got patent rights over the cowpea GM that is being released? Today, even the ordinary hybrid seeds that are sold in the market, farmers are rejecting it because they cannot afford to buy it. Farmers want to have control of their own food. Now, they are calling this as a breakthrough. Let me just find out. What are the problems of cowpea production in Ghana? Is the problem about seed? If it's familiar about farming in Ghana, we produce cowpea in Ejura, in most part of the Bono region, let me put it so, in the Upper East, Upper West, Savannah, and Northern region. Go to those areas. I'm very familiar. Go to Yaba. The reason why they are not able to supply enough cowpea compared before has to do with the fact that they cannot rely with the current raining pattern to produce. Is he telling me that with the GM cowpea, with the rain, we'll be able to produce? What is the reason why insects are not affecting GM cowpea? Can you explain that?
Okay, so
if insects are not affecting them, does it mean that those cowpea, when we consume them, we are 100% safe?
Mr. Nyaba, you've posed a number of questions. I would have gone to Anthony Morrison, but I just want to go back a bit to Dr. Mboyine for some answers. Dr. Mboyine, so crucial questions. I'm sure you've been writing them down. I hope so. But 2 quick things I want you to look at. He mentions the difference in cost between GMO products and organic products in the States and other places. And he's asking you why you think organic ones are, in some cases, twice more expensive. Then, the seeds, a crucial bit, because you don't want a monopoly where now the farmers will have some dependency so that without maybe the CSIR or some other institution, they can't have a crop season. How do you react to that? Would they have these seeds? What are the cost efficiencies? Your reaction? Dr. Mboyine, can you hear me? Please unmute.
Yeah, so I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Yes, please. So all the concerns that my brother just raised are the usual comments that we hear, and we have responded to these concerns consistently. Let me state here that when they say organic foods are twice or thrice more expensive than non-organically grown food, it is because the organic farmer incurs excessive cost. So, for instance, if someone decides to grow a crop like cowpea in a way that he says he's producing it organically, it means that he's not going to rely on any external input such as insecticide. It means that if he says he's going to apply fertilizer, he's going to use animal dropping. Now, let me give you an example. For a hectare of, let's say, a hectare of a farmland, you need at least 2 tons of animal droppings to do that. Now tell me, where are the animal farms that are going to give you that quantity of animal dropping to actually fertilize the farm? These are the realities that our farmers face. And even with animal dropping, you need it to be applied earlier for it to decompose. But I don't want to go into the technicalities of that. Now, even what we call organic, in organic farming, there are certain approved insecticides that are used. One of them is the BT insecticide that is widely used in organic farming. It is the same BT that is being used in this particular cowpea. So if it is not good enough for the cowpea, then that means it's not good enough for the organic farmer to also use the same BT insecticide in his organic farm. Then the next thing is that we also use neem products in organic farm. Now, why farmers in organic systems don't get much is because most of these things, the way the production system goes, their yields are generally far, far lower. So to give them a premium price to compensate them for their excessive losses, that is why if you go through most of the developed countries, they will give you some form of market premium for the way you have produced your food. If we were to go organically, I can assure you that many people would have even been hungrier than people are now. Let us operate in a system that all farming systems, so long as the foods they produce are safe, are allowed to operate. Let us not try to limit it because we think that a particular way of farming is the way to go. I am a student of agroecology. I worked on agroecology for my PhD. And it's all these things that they are talking about. I am well schooled and well versed in them. So these points, and they talk about seed monopoly. CSIR has been releasing many crop varieties. Seeds are always available. So I don't see where this issue of seed monopoly is coming from. He talks about the weather, Yagaba, and when it is what he said was not factual. I beg to differ. So if you come to cowpea production, it is not about cowpea is planted in August, and if you know the rain pattern in the north, from August all the way to October, that is the period that we have consistent rainfalls. So cowpea is not one of the crops that is subject to drought in the course of production. So I beg to differ in that particular respect. It is absolutely false. It is not true. The main limiting factor in cowpea production is the problem of insect pests. That is the main limiting problem. And developing resistant varieties. This is not the first time that we have developed resistant varieties. As I talk to you now, we have varieties that are resistant to a lot of different types of insects. And the method of resistance, if you talk to any well-trained entomologist or scientist, will tell you that there are different ways. The plant is able to develop mechanisms to protect itself, just like we have done for this GM cowpea. Thank you.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Anthony Morrison. He is CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness. Like I said, Nigeria, South Africa, as far as maize, or if you like corn, depending on what aspect you're referring to, before or after, are involved, they have moved along with GMO products. Other countries are coming on board, but others are still very resistant. Where do you sit on this matter? Anthony Morrison, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, Benjamin.
I can hear you too. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, and very good morning to both docs in the studio with you. Well, from the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, we are quite very clear on our stand with the GMO. We feel that there should be more education. The fear-mongering is not helping what we're talking about with regards to industrialization, value addition. Let me point it clear that science and research is a critical component in our agriculture drive and industrialization. And we can, at the same time, underestimate the role of the likes of tissue culture, gene editing, the GMO, and the like. No, we can't. It's very much important. Look, Benjamin, Ghana imports $600 million worth of Burkina Faso annually. And the tomato we import is called beef tomatoes.
What tomato?
Beef tomatoes, all right? Because it's got a lot of meat, low water retention level, and higher shelf life. What do you think was done to the seed? It was all gene edited. We're talking about banana, okay? Banana. Apart from the local banana that we all know, all the global banana that we consume were all gene edited. So I want us to be factual as Ghanaians, to be truthful to ourselves, and stop the hypocrisy and stop some form of half-baked information sharing. We need to be realistic. In the global phenomenon we find ourselves, it's all about education, research, science, and innovation. And that is why we are into the global arena of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, and what have you. This is what we are driving. And all these are having impact on agriculture productivity and industrialization. Okay? Let me point out to the fact that I heard my brother, Charles, making a statement on the cost of organic and all that. Look, what we do know is we have organic food, we have the conventional ones that we use fertilizer for, and we have GMO food. There are GMO foods more expensive than organic foods and also the conventional food. Let's be factual, let's be real. A lot of people don't know that.
Can you name some of them? Can you name some of them?
Yes. So, for instance, let me also classify, let me also classify the GMO food. There are some GMO foods, for instance, the seeds, okay? GMO seeds, there are some of them that are reproductive through the normal agriculture production. So you go to plow the land, you plant, you harvest, and all that. But there are other GMO foods that are limited to the laboratory, okay? So let's also differentiate between the biotechnology side of GMO, the food itself, and the one that goes to the natural productivity. If you go to US, for instance, some baked beans, corned beef, all right, chicken, some of these are produced genetically, right? And some of these are very expensive. I don't want to mention trademark. They are very expensive to purchase. We have banana coming
and they are more expensive than others that are not GMO related, right?
You see, GMO foods are meant to solve strategic problems. Let me give you an instance. We are all happy when we are sick. We go to the hospital and we go to the pharmacy. We spend a lot of money on medicines. You think the medicines are natural? All medicines we purchase have all gone to genetic modification.
Hold right there. Hold for me. Just so we don't misinform the public. I do know there are medicines that are purely organic and they are sold separately and they have their own cost factor and everything. Most of what we consume may have organic elements or natural elements, but with other artificial elements. I don't know whether that is what you are saying, all medicine, because it's not all medicine. So let's clarify.
I said most. Okay. Now, I'm referring to most medicines. Aside what you and I know of traditional medicines and all that, even now, traditional medicines are going through some laboratory activities, okay? Biotechnologies have been involved, incorporated in all these things. So we should be real to ourselves. Look, World Food Program, okay, this year came out that 1 million Ghanaians will be food insecure, right? And from June to August, and the World Food and Agriculture Organization, World Bank, have all projected that there are increasing food insecurity on the African continent. The current rate, for instance, we use a lot of pesticides, agrochemicals in food production. Most of the agrochemicals and the pesticides we use, insecticides, have all gone through some laboratory activity. Why are we hiding from the fact that if a solution of gene editing could possibly be a solution to our problem, why don't we adopt it? And I'll give you what India did. India was very clear in all this. They said, look, we are coming up with a block. These regions are organic, fertilizer and chemical-free state. So those who want to go into organic production, they go to those states to produce. Of course, the lands are expensive. Those who are doing conventional applied fertilizers and chemicals are also secluded in a different state. Right? And there are other states that allow genetic seed to be used. So as a country, we need to be very pragmatic about what we want. Currently, as we speak, Benjamin, the cost of food has gone up, okay? Food inflation is a bigger component of our economic factor. And it's increasingly making a lot of homes and houses very food insecure. Most people's homes are feeding once a day. It's not something that most of us are happy about. All right? So we want to see the kind of family setting where they enjoy 3 square meals.
Okay. All right. So for you, this will lead to food security, barring cost and other factors. Let me come back to Charles Nyaba. I know you disagree with Anthony Morrison and you disagree with Dr. Mboyine. But Dr. Mboyine has specifically suggested in a way that all of these bits out there, and I've read quite a number of articles. I also am in some surprise. I've read articles also from science-based organizations. But the point is, are you still in doubt when it comes to the safety of GMO products? And when it comes to production, he says there's not going to be any seed monopoly. Do you believe that, Mr. Nyaba?
Yeah, Benjamin, let me just try to further investigate or to further clarify some of the points raised by both. I think Farmer Morrison put an inaccurate information there that I'll have to draw his attention to. Because when you ask him whether he can list any GM food that are more expensive than the organic food, he ran away from the question. Trying to use processed products like beef, corned beef, as an example. There is no, if you like, look at all the literature. There's no literature that suggests that GM food anywhere are ever cheaper than organic food. Now, responding to my question, Dr. Mboyine also said that GM seeds can be reproduced and that the organic food that are more expensive than GM food is because of cost of production. If you're a consumer and you go to the market, you are not bargaining for lower price considering cost of production of a particular commodity. So you cannot justify that if somebody's cost of production is high, the person will impose the cost on the consumer and they will be willing to consume it. There is underlying factor why people will prefer to pay more for produce that are produced with organic than those that are GM food. That one is very clear. Now, let me also say that even though I have not done research myself to establish whether GM food are 100% risk-free or not, but the literature we all read suggests that there's no certainty of safety of GM food across the globe everywhere. So they cannot also deny from that. Now let's come to whether farmers will be able to use GM seed. There is no also a research anywhere that GM seed can be able to reproduce and so give the same results as the foundation seeds that are used to produce the seeds. So that is not also true. And we are talking about economic and food sovereignty. So if you are talking of food sovereignty, we are looking at a situation where farmers are empowered to be able to control their food production. We don't want any farmer to depend on CSIR. We don't want any farmer to depend on importation of seeds. We don't want any farmers to be determined on what to produce at a season. As we speak, even what the support Ministry of Food and Agri are giving in terms of seed, farmers have to abandon that and use their own seed because the support never came on time. Okay? How more if you are talking about BT cowpea? So to me, we need to focus our research more on addressing the underlying issues that are making farmers not to be able to produce enough cowpea. And I said the seed is the least among the problems that farmers are facing. Today, as my brother is saying, if you're going to Yaba, to even have access to the farm, it's a problem. I am a very key actor around Yaba area, a dry area, I'm telling you. I provide agrochemicals, I provide seeds there. I send fertilizer there, and they cannot even take it to their farm. And that's what we should be looking at. There are instances, even plowing the land is a problem. There are no mechanization services. Why I don't know breaking through on that? Okay? This issue of trying to project BT copy is just the funding. We are all aware. The noise they are all making is because they are getting funding to be able to pay for the work they're doing. That is the underlying factor. They are never going to address any problems of any farmer because they know the problems of the farmers. Why are they not addressing those problems? Now, let's even come to other GM products that were released earlier. What are they performing now? Go to Burkina. All farmers have run away from BT cotton. What is the reason? They were making a whole lot of noise. This is coming to address the problem of cotton shortage and then increasing livelihoods of farmers. What happened? Why is there no farmer in Burkina today is using BT cotton? Okay? So for we, the farmers, they can do whatever they want. But we will also do what we want. We will make sure that we continue to educate the farmers. We will tell them the kind of interventions that they need to use to sustain their businesses. You can produce it, but we will also ensure that farmers don't buy them. That one day we can assure them with that.
But Mr. Nyaba, would you not be working, you know, in the opposite direction if you did that? Because the CSIR says it's trying to work with you to ensure food security in the country. So if you say that you're going to advise the peasant farmers to do this, it means you're going to be at cross purposes with the CSIR. Is that your position?
I'm just being Ghanaian. I'm just being real. I don't want anybody to use the farmer for money. They are using the farmers for money to promote their research products. And we will stand strong to ensure that we are not being used. Look, let me tell you, all the crop commodities in Ghana, that Ghana is self-sufficient in. Take cassava. They are not GMO cassava. Take yam. It's not GMO yam. Take plantain. It's not GMO plantain. Burkina is self-sufficient in tomatoes. It's not GMO tomatoes as Farmer Ed Morrison is trying to let us believe. Okay? Those crops that they are talking or they are trying to promote, those crops are not contributing anywhere to our food system.
Right.
And they are not contributing to our food system because of certain underlying challenges.
Okay.
It's not the solution they are proposing.
All right.
We are thinking this solution they are proposing is just to fill their pocket. It's just to meet the requirements of their funding.
Okay.
Are they those who fund their own research?
Mr. Nyaba,
copy? They are not.
All right.
They are being funded by people outside.
Mr. Nyaba, your point
and those
is
people
made.
don't have farm interests of farmers at heart.
All right, thank you. Your point is made. I'll come to you for 30 seconds of final comments. But let me go to Dr. Mboyine first. So I have two comments that have come in which relate to what Mr. Nyaba just mentioned. It's from one Peter Ebo-Edu, live watching us. He says, who is funding the research of the CSIR into GMOs, or which entity? Who or which entity? Then two, are GMOs sterile or not? You can add that to your final comments. 1 minute each, gentlemen, and we're out of here. I'll start with you, Dr. Mboyine.
Okay, thank you very much. So, my final comments and responding to your two questions. We had a launch of the BT cowpea. That was last week, Thursday. When we had the launch, yesterday I was at a meeting when a farmer traveled about 80 kilometers from his community, that he had heard the news on TV and seeing the challenges he faces when it comes to cowpea production, which was why he abandoned that crop. He traveled all the way to Tamale and took another vehicle to Nyankpala, where CSIR Sari is located, looking for the seeds. He was told that I was at a meeting in town. He followed up to that particular meeting to come and place his demand. I am bringing in this example just to say that the challenges our farmers face are real. Peasant Farmers Association may go ahead to talk to farmers, but I can assure you that the farmer knows the reality that he faces. That is why for a very, very long time, CSIR has stopped working from the top-bottom approach, and we are now using the bottom-up, where we start from, farmers tell us their problems, and we work into solving them. Now, there are differences between hybrids and there are differences between non-hybrid crops. Hybrid crop, when you buy the seed and you plant, the following year you have to go back to buy the seed. Now, when you have a non-hybrid and the BT cowpea that has been released is a non-hybrid, you can save the seed and grow it the following year and it will still perform for you. It is just that as part of good agronomic practices, this is not just about GM crops, crops in general. We advise farmers not to recycle seeds beyond 3 years because mixtures and other things will come up and that will reduce the vigor that you are expecting. But beyond that, it is absolutely okay to save the seeds and then to use year after year.
Okay, so you've answered, you've reacted to that point by Charles Nyaba, but these 2 points, I want you to quickly get to them because we are wrapping up. Who is funding the research of this?
Our work is coordinated by the African Agricultural Technology.
Oh, what a time for
Foundation, which is a consortium made up of African scientists that came together to put together the proposal, and then we secured funding from USAID to actually conduct this work. So this is a proposal that was submitted, and let me state that in scientific work, not just in Ghana, anywhere at all scientific work is being undertaken, you write proposal to source for funding. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with anyone sourcing for funding. Even government of Ghana sources for funding to sponsor all kinds of projects. So once you identify a problem and you are able to justify it and source for funding, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Are you producing? Are you producing the GMO seeds here? Is the CSIR producing the seeds?
CSIR developed the variety. CSIR is producing the seed. Everything is a CSIR, and every variety that CSIR has released is always a CSIR. And we send germplasm to Plant Genetic Research Institute to keep them for future use. Everything is produced here locally. You are producing everything here locally. Everything is produced locally.
The final bit was,
you can come around and have a look at our
GMOs, we might do that. Are the GMOs sterile or not? That was the final question before I take just briefly for me.
I answered that one with the hybrid and non-hybrid. So the BT cowpea is not something that is sterile that you cannot replant. You can plant as many times as you want.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mboyine. Let me hear now from Anthony Morrison. Your final words.
Benjamin, thank you very much. We're talking about the challenges in the economy.
And you have 1 minute, by the way. So if you over-elaborate, you may lose your time. You have 1 minute.
Okay. So with all this, one ought to be very careful about the kind of misinformation we put out there. Just to mention some of the few commodities that are genetically modified, we have corn. Most of the corn that goes into animal feed are all genetically modified. Soya bean, we have canola oil, sugar, okay, apples, potatoes, tomatoes. Salmon is engineered to go faster and larger. Okay, golden rice. So we have a number of these crops put on our shelves like that are all genetically modified. Look at baked beans, okay? Some of these that we consume. What I want to say is that we need to properly educate the masses out there so they get to appreciate what science and engineering and innovation and technology are doing in support of the food security drive. It is not about people's perception. Charles himself sells seeds and agrochemicals and fertilizers. You should go back and find out how these seeds are produced, how these agrochemicals are produced, and the fertilizers are produced. These are even causing the human health more danger than the GMO foods are causing. So we need to be very clear with our understanding of the sector and not be speculative and go ahead and be spewing things that are not true.
Anthony Morrison, we are grateful for your time. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. Charles Nyaba, you have the final word.
Benjamin, let me say that we are resolute in fighting for the Ghanaian farmer. We are resolute in ensuring food sovereignty. We are not going to allow ourselves to be used by others. The example my brother gave, let me tell you, ask him. That farmer who traveled from how many kilometers to come to the launch, Who paid for the transport costs? Who paid for the accommodation? It's just part of the propaganda they always try to throw in the lives of a people. My own former national president was promoted, given money, given allowance, to go out to give false testimony of GMOs. Today, go and ask him whether he wants to hear the name GMOs. Okay? We are in the rural community, every part of the country. We are operating there. Today, as Farmer Morrison is talking, tell me, let him tell me, what is his contribution to farming in Ghana? Does he know what farmers are doing in the various communities? Go to any community, go and mention our name. They'll tell you the inputs, the support we are giving them. It's not about making noise. If it's about making noise, we can all make noise. So what they are doing is to be able to get funding from funding organizations to do the work they are doing. But we are dealing with the farmers and addressing their problems.
All right.
So they cannot use us to raise more funding and come and throw dust into our eyes.
Mr.
So we are going to be resolute in our fight against GMOs, and we will stand firm in our stance.
Mr. Nyaba, thank you very much for your comments. Some of your comments, though, about who is contributing to farming and propaganda on the other side, I think those could have been said better. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. Those who joined the conversation were Dr. Jerry Mboyine, Senior Research Scientist and Lead Scientist on GM Cowpea. We also had, he is with the CSIR. We also had Anthony Morrison, CEO for the Chamber of Agribusiness. And we also had Charles Nyaba, a former head of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Now, if you're stressed out about all your cleaning needs, you need to worry no more. Dan's World Services is your one-stop shop that meets all your commercial and residential cleaning needs, from pest control, janitorial and house cleaning, event cleaning and waste management, as well as carpet and sofa cleaning and more. Whether you're at home or at work, we understand and know how haptic cleaning can be coupled with your busy lifestyle. That's why we've got great news for you. Dan's World Environmental and Facility Management Services has got you completely covered. And you know, we excel in whatever we do, leaving you beyond your wildest expectations. Where can you find us? Excel House, opposite the Regimanuel Estate Nungwa Barrier. You can also call us on these numbers, 0302 905 538 or 0555 752 361. Dan's World Services, beyond expectation. Well, up next, we'll be telling you about that latest situation in respect of the Achimota forest and how some eco-conscious citizens, including Arusha Ghana among others, are saying they will resist the move with everything they have. That conversation on the Achimota forest up next on the AM show. Do stay. So here we are talking about the Achimota forest. This wouldn't be the first time that in recent years it has come to the fore. The point, though, is the reservation status of that forest, part of which is now going to be used for commercial purposes or residential purposes. Is that in line with what we expect from the Achimota forest, or at least what safeguards it poses for us? We have joining the conversation eco-conscious citizens and their representative with us this morning, Awula Serwah. She is the coordinator of this group. She joins the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's always good to have you. And, you know, sometimes I talk about the last time I saw you out there in front of Parliament, yes, picketing. Which one were you picketing on that day?
Against
the day I saw you.
The EI 144,
right,
which declassified bits of Achimota forest, and also LI 2342, which is quite perverse because it allows mining in forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas, which means that we've lost the plot.
So moving on from declassification and mining, and which you say means that we've lost the plot, there's this recent drive, at least as far as the Achimota forest is concerned, to use part of it commercially.
Yes.
As we've been told, some of this goes far back in time to around maybe 2014, thereabouts. Talk had been there but nothing had been actualized. But now we are seeing inroads there. How worrying is that situation if we take away this classification and residential developments start coming up in the Achimota forest?
I mean, I would say that it's very worrying. I mean, it just shows that we don't have an appreciation. We have a very limited appreciation of the value of forests. This forest reserve, Achimota Forest Reserve, is the last remaining forest reserve in Accra. And we know the importance of forest, or at least we should know the importance of forest reserve. So who in his right mind, who goes about green Ghana, is it just a gimmick? Who in his right mind, who is talking about the sustainable development goals, especially number 11, which talks about sustainable cities. How is Accra sustainable when you are removing the lungs of Accra? Because our forests are our lungs. And as I keep on saying, is the last remaining forest reserve in Accra. So why on earth would we declassify portions of it? It doesn't make any sense if we have an understanding of the value of forests, if we do.
In other words, we have no business doing this.
We have no business. In fact, lots of organizations, apart from the CSOs, environmental organizations, you also have the Ghana Institute of Foresters, you also have the Ghana Institute of Planners, who've come out to say in very strong terms that declassifying the portions of Achimota Forest is an extremely bad move. In fact, they talked about the government probably having a very limited understanding of the value of forests. They said that ecologically, it was not negotiable, absolutely not negotiable, to even think of declassifying parts of Achimota Forest. Because the forests are our lungs. We talk about the ecology, the ecosystem, the habitat of species,
I mean,
plants,
flora and fauna.
Flora and fauna. I mean, you know, it just shows that all the things we say we do, we just do it whether for funding or whether for photo opportunities, but we haven't grasped the importance of it all. Otherwise, we wouldn't be, because again, Benjamin, you have to remember that a lot of our forests are being destroyed by illegal mining.
Indeed.
We know that. And then when you have the forests that haven't been destroyed by illegal mining, you want to go and declassify portions of it. You can't be for real. You can't be for real.
So we know that these forests, I remember when portions of the Amazon were on fire. Forests are like the lungs of the planet. Of course. The lungs. Imagine a human body without lungs. You can't breathe.
You can't function.
But when you make mention of this and then you rope in Green Ghana, in one breath, we're doing Green Ghana, in another breath, and we know of the forest loss, the forest cover loss over the last decade.
We've lost about, if my information is correct, we've lost more than 70% of our forest cover over the years. And so what we need to do is to be, what shall I say, replenishing our forests, having more areas designated as forest reserves. What we do not want to be doing is declassifying parts of the forest. And as you said, the forests are our lungs. So what we are doing is removing the lungs of Accra. When you look at that area, look at the number of outside the periphery, look at the number of petrol stations, all that. You know, we know that the forests absorb the pollutants, or I think we should know. So I'm beginning to think that we have no understanding of the importance of forests or green spaces. You are aware of Achimota Parks and Gardens.
Indeed.
We have a petition talking about an audit of all parks and gardens.
Most of them are gone.
Most of them are gone. And in Wa, when you talk about deforestation, in Wa in particular, I mean, it's just mind-boggling that we are actually building a petrol station on parts of parks and gardens land in Wa. So nothing we do makes sense. It seems as if when we see a green space, the only thing that comes to our mind is that we must put a building there. So we have called on all right-thinking members of the Ghanaian society to resist this declassification of portions of Achimota Forest. It doesn't make any sense. And what is perverse is that we are hiding behind the Owu family, saying that they were not compensated, which they were. Receipts have been found that they were compensated. And even if they had not been compensated, why would you give back the forest, which is going to be sold? It's not as if it's a sacred place that they want to keep for whatever purposes. It's going to be sold out. So it's a question of wanting to grab prime land, just wanting to grab prime land, and then using, or shall I say, hiding behind the Owu family. And journalists should investigate how much forest the Owu family actually asked for and how much is being declassified. And one would see that it's just a land grab.
What do you know? What do you see if you read between the lines?
It's just a land grab. We are coveting the forest reserve. We have a lust for prime land, especially the green spaces, whether it's parks and gardens land, whether it's Achimota Forest Reserve, and we just want to go and build on them. As simple as that. Pure and unadulterated greed and lust. That's all it is.
Who are we? When you say
well, those who are involved in the declassification, those who should know better. I mean, the forest reserve was made a forest reserve by the colonialists, if my information is correct, in 1921, long before some of those acting were born. So why would you think that as Accra has grown and we need more green spaces, we need more forests, why would you at this crucial point, when we've lost so much of our forest cover, think it's a sensible thing to go and pass an executive instrument declassifying portions of Achimota Forest? This is something that is perverse, not in the interest of Ghanaians. I mean, no sensible person removes their lungs unless the lungs are diseased. And in this particular case, they are not. So why are we going to build on a forest reserve? And I'm calling on all right-thinking members of the society to resist this, because our children will not forgive us for what we are doing. If other past generations had done what we have done, we wouldn't have come to meet Achimota Forest. We wouldn't have come to meet green spaces. So what we are doing is unforgivable, because we're not thinking of leaving a legacy to our children. We're thinking of grabbing everything, even our Ramsar sites. Even our Ramsar sites, we are building on them. You know, Honorable Quarty a while back was going to...
Henry Quarty.
Yes, he was going to, I mean, he had, at the time, our respect. He was going to destroy the buildings on the Ramsar sites. And then we can all guess what happened. And there was an about turn, and that's not being done. So what exactly do we understand by climate change? What do we understand by measures that one is supposed to take? We don't seem to understand anything. And I keep on going on about Green Ghana because it's so hypocritical to go on and on about Green Ghana, when we do not really believe in it. We don't.
Your father, your father, I mean, you've been around for a long time. You've seen leadership, at least from... How do you think we got here? Before I even get to the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry, this about turn, how things, your generation versus what is happening now, why do you think this disconnect came to be?
Well, it's very difficult to fathom. I don't understand. I mean, I was just telling somebody the other day that if our first president, I think he'll be turning in his grave. I mean, on independence, there was just hope, such vision. My dad was so proud. You know, Ghana was going to be, you know, the new country, the leader in all things. And right now, we're just behind. Look at Kenya. With all their faults, they are preserving their green spaces. Look at Rwanda. They've had a civil war. But regarding their green spaces, it's not been negotiable. Look at other countries that we think we are ahead of, and look at the vision and foresight they have. I think that we need to go, Sankofa says going back. So we need to go back and find out that where did we lose our way? Where did we think that the only thing we are to do on this earth is to build, and extend the concrete jungle? Where did we get all those ideas from? We need to go back, you know, to the part where we had Kwame Nkrumah creating first of all, the Department of Parks and Gardens, and then the Ministry of Parks and Gardens, and putting a cabinet minister or Kansi at the helm of affairs, because he knew how important it was. And now what are we doing? What are we doing?
So tell me about this as we conclude on this conversation. Have you had any interactions with the land minister, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources? Because, listen, this bit, when you pay attention to it, it plays a role in the water table.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Then, when there's flooding or rain, it absorbs to prevent flooding.
Absolutely.
Have you channeled these conversations to
we haven't,
the Minister for Lands and Natural
citizens
Resources?
Haven't directly engaged with him, but other organizations have. But the reality is that I should think that before he got the position, he would be aware of a lot of these things you are saying. I mean, even my class 3, class 4 students are aware of this. I'm sure he would be aware. And all I'm saying is that he's aware of this, and those who passed EI 144 would know that it was not in the interest of Ghana and Ghanaians, but they did it all the same. There have been so many calls from different organizations to rescind it, to do away with it. They have just chosen to ignore it. Recently, EI 234 was passed, which removed just a tiny section of what was under EI 144.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that the political will to get Ghana to become a green city is just not there.
It's just not
But
there.
what annoys me is that we should not be hypocritical. We should not pay lip service to it. I mean, as I speak today, I've got messages from Atronsu in the northwest region about an excavator being very close to the Atronsu stream. And anybody who has seen the Atronsu stream, the water was so pure. They used to boast that it's even better than Baltic. And right now, we want community mining. We want to push it down the throats of the people who said they don't want it. I've been told that there's an excavator very close to the source of the Atronsu stream. What are we doing? Already, most of our waters are polluted. The few that we have that are not polluted, we think that a sensible thing to do is to go and mine there when we know what mining is doing, even the so-called legal mining. We know what it's doing.
Let's take a few calls on this subject as we conclude the conversation. You can call that number 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. You can call in and share your thoughts on the discussions we've had today, not just this one about the Achimota Forest, but especially on this one as well. You can call that number 0302-211-691 as we conclude the conversation. In the meantime, before your calls come through, your favorite podcast show, Bus Stop Diaries, now airs every Saturday at 4 p.m. on the Joy News channel. You can also watch and listen to all our episodes on the Joy News YouTube channel, myjoyonline.com, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Grab your chill drink. Join us for another exciting journey filled with trending bus, and that's on your Bus Stop Diaries. Let me also tell you about the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. You can escape there. We call it Drapa Dubai. You have seen the rest. Now it's time to see the best. Take a break from work. Take a break from the South. The Royal Cozy Hills Hotel Drapa Dubai is the place to relax, rewind, and re-energize. It is away from the stress of the South. Now this is what awaits you. One, an unforgettable safari experience. An amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamuses, zebras, ostriches, among many others, using our spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or using quad bikes. 2, water sports, such as jet skiing, boat or canoe rides. 3, various family games to keep you and your families excited every day. And there's still more. Great tourist attractions in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock, Slave Caves, and more. So escape from the South, escape to the North. Escape to the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Drapa Dubai, for an unforgettable experience. Just call these numbers to make your bookings or inquiries. 0501 694 280 or 0248 844 463. Those are the numbers you can reach out on. We have Frank from Achim Fosu joining the conversation. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
So make your thoughts quick, and let me just say, don't listen to yourself on the TV, listen to yourself on the phone. Quick thoughts, Frank. Hello, Frank.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I like this discussion. And what I would like to say is that our leaders, we realize they don't think about us. So they just do whatever they want to do with LI and EI and whatever, what they think will be in their favor. But we are promising them. The youth of today, we are very angry. And one day, something serious will happen to this country because we can't sit down for us to keep the next generation like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for making your thoughts very succinct. We'll move on to the next caller, 0302-211-691. 0302-211-691. Call through. Let's know what your thoughts are. That is what you heard, Frank, on it, that the youth of today will not sit down for some of these things to happen. It's just been horrifying. It's like a horror show.
No, it's like a horror.
Watching some of what has happened, because you talk about Etiwa, you talk about Achimota and many other places. It's becoming problematic. But let me bring in Esther from Ashoman. Esther, good morning.
Pardon?
Esther, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm ready. Pardon?
I can hear you, Esther. Go ahead with your thoughts, please. Listen on the phone, not on the TV set. Please go ahead.
Yes. My statement is, I was a soldier, a woman, an old lady now, about 70. But what happened was, I was with the border guard during a tampon time. In our border duties, there is a saying that we can't eliminate smuggling, even across the British Channel, France and Britain. They smuggle. But we can only limit it to some level. So if we bring back the border guards, the border guards, they are solely trained to be in the bush.
Right.
You bring a custom officer from Legon to go and stay in the bush. You wouldn't do it, even your own child. So they should really start with the border guards.
Okay.
And then they know their purpose. And that will help the state. Because you can even look at Donald Trump. He was trying to make a fence wall between America. But it couldn't happen. You can't. Because at times, on the right side, you have a river for the people who are living at the left side to drink. And they are from one mother, one father. But only the demarcation shows. Do you think they can neglect each other? No. We have to consider those things.
Right.
And then, at times, they use their discretion. The custom officials, as the lady was saying, he said they should pay 40. At times, even preparing a duty, it's a discretionary work.
Okay.
Then they look at the items and their purposes.
Thank you, Esther, for sharing your thoughts with us. She says she's a former officer herself, and she mentions something that Mr. Ali Nachia mentioned this morning, the border guards, and that has to do with our latest hotline documentary, Porous Borders. We'll see whether we can grab one more call. If not, we'll wrap in the studio. What do you think, Awula Serwah, what do you think should be the way forward now that the land grabbing you're talking about is happening in real time?
You know, I used to say that I thought that the youth were not angry enough because their legacy is what is being squandered right now. If you look at Atiwa Forest Reserve, a forest reserve, you want to go and mine bauxite there. When the experts have told you that all it will do will be to kill the endangered species there, and also, you know, it's a source of water to 5 million people, you are going to contaminate the source of water. And we're not listened to. So we happen to be in court as we speak. The case is still in court.
Right.
Right. And then you look at Achimota Forest Reserve. You have been told by a group of experts, by environmental organizations, that's a bad idea. We need more forests, not less, because the concrete jungle is advancing. Okay. And you yourself rightly said the forests are our lungs. So what I'll say that if this generation is just going to destroy everything in sight, and the next generation is going to sit idly by and allow it to happen, so be it. We are doing our best to say that declassifying Achimota Forest is not negotiable. It will just be destructive.
Declassifying the Achimota Forest is non-negotiable. Do we have that final caller to take? Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Yes, you are a final caller. You have 30 seconds. Let's go.
Yes, I think your sound engineer has to be sacked. In fact, Joy, there is no training for your news readers. They speak to their throat. Your sound system, when there's an advert, you can't even, it's so loud. Your voice, in fact, the engineer has to do a lot of work for you.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. We're grateful. Okay. We do our best from here, but we are thankful for the feedback and we'll work at them. And that's how we end the conversation this morning. Awula Serwah with Eco-Conscious Citizens. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
All right. So we'll be back tomorrow, definitely on the AM show. I did this together with Sweetie Abochi. But up next, we have Joy News Desk. You want to stay and get informed.